Good evening. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So the first thing we have to do here is I got to announce the meeting, January 2025 Directors Meeting, Tuesday, January 28th, 6 p.m., Clubhouse and Zoom virtual meeting. Call to order. Now the first thing we have to do is director roll call and establish a quorum. Can you hear me in the back? No. Oh.
You have to put that microphone right up to your...
All right, how about now? My apologies. I just was announcing the fact we've got to do director roll call, and I called the meeting to order. So let's do the roll call.
Rose? Here. Ken?
Here.
Beata? Here. Cheryl?
Yes.
Rick?
Here.
Pam's here, and it's also attended by Beth and Jeremy.
Okay, everybody's here. The first order I'd like to do is rearrange the agenda slightly. We have somewhere in the motions here we have the possibility of receiving a petition. So I'm going to solicit everybody here. Does somebody have a petition they want to submit to the board president? Nobody has a petition? Like a recall petition in case you missed the heading on the top of the form? No. Okay. Well, then the first order is, since we expect a petition's being developed, how many of you heard about the petition? Most everybody? Okay. So I don't need to go into any context of what the petition's about, but we have the benefit, and I'd like to move the agenda around a little bit. We have the benefit of having with us somebody that can be of significant help in understanding what we're doing here with this petition, pending petition. And so I'd like to introduce one person who is remote. I can't see the screen from here. Is it working?
He's there, Rick. He's on, and I think we'll be able to take the audio, but William's just doing some... He's not on video. He's only on audio with us.
He's on. Is he there now?
He is, yes.
Okay. So we invited the person of Adrian Adams. Adrian Adams is a very distinguished lawyer, and he's one of the founders of the law firm of Adams Sterling, which is the law firm that basically generated the Davis Sterling HOA law set. Everybody follow that sequence, guys? So we've contracted with him to help us in the event of getting the documents that kick off a recall. And I'll give you one short summary, and then I'll turn it over to Adrian, and he can explain how it works and answer any quick questions we have. Can you hear me in the back?
Yes. Adrian, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Can you hear everything
Yes.
right?
We can hear you just fine, Adrian.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, Rick, go ahead. I want to make sure he was there.
So when the petition comes in, they can give it to any director, but the directors have to give it to me. And then by law, I'm responsible for doing everything I possibly can to have that petition won. One for the homeowners that signed it. They have a right to do a recall. They have a right to kick all the board members out. And my responsibility changes significantly. I have the role of basically representing the recall process and doing the best job I can of getting the recall to be successful. And I have every intention of doing that, because I think I'll set aside my personal views because they're not relevant. So forget what I just said about I think. But I'd like to introduce Adrian Adams. Adrian, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, the recall process, we've been through our firm, a number of them have worked with a number of associations that gone through recalls. The recalls are rarely successful, and they become more problematic with the changes in the election laws under the Davis-Sterling Act. Now the process is much longer. It takes about 150 days to go through it because of the nomination requirements, the notice requirements. There are a lot of new requirements under the Davis-Sterling Act. And unfortunately, it also is going to be running parallel with your annual meeting, because it comes out to the end of June if a petition is submitted now. And your annual meeting, as I understand it, is the first week in July. So it's either going to run parallel to elections, or we may be able to combine them into a single ballot of recall, if successful, electing new directors, but then followed immediately by the annual meeting election of directors, which is going to complicate things. And it's just unfortunate that, yeah, typically what we do is with elections and election rules, we prohibit any recalls within 6 months of an election because of this complicating factor. But you don't have that yet in your election rules, as I understand it. And so we'll have to deal with it if they submit it. It would be better at this point if they didn't, and just allow the normal election process to take place. But we'll see. We'll see if they submit a petition or not. So do you have any questions?
Anybody have a question? They can come on up. I'll hand them my microphone. Well, a microphone. Adrian, we're setting up a microphone for somebody to ask you a question.
Okay.
On the recall, yeah.
Is this attorney on retainer, or
Correct.
prior to this, we had retained this attorney?
So we had an executive session earlier today where we would announce that we did retain them. So yes.
Okay, so he was retained as of today.
Correct.
So what was the cost for tonight?
I'm not sure.
I think the attorney could tell us what he charges per hour.
Yes, $3.95 an hour.
$3.95 an hour?
And it will depend.
25.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry?
it depends on how long you keep me in the meeting tonight. So you guys control the cost at this point.
Okay.
Is he a replacement for our regular attorney?
No, I would not think so. I think he would be advisement on the Davis Sterling Act and in the recall situation. I just wanted to know what it's costing us for this BS. Thank you.
You're welcome. Did we answer your question though?
I'm assuming $700 to $1,000.
You're okay.
For someone waving a flag that has not arrived. So.
Well,
Yes. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that before Mr. Adams spoke, the board was supposed to vote to change the agenda. You cannot change a posted agenda without an approval from the board. Kathy Miller, Lot 2010.
Okay, well, actually, that's under parliamentary procedures, of which the board is not under. Parliamentary
The
procedures.
board is under the Davis Sterling
Kathy,
Act.
you don't need to interrupt him. Let him
Right.
finish, please.
Yeah, under the Davis Sterling Act, parliamentary procedures only apply to membership meetings, not to board meetings.
Hi, Joel Greathouse, lot, again, 295, I think. It takes, obviously, I'm against the recall because we have annual elections. The disruption of business, yes, things will eventually settle back down again and business get going, but it's obviously going to slow down the progress in YLP. But I'd like to point this out. This is fantastic that we have a management company, because something like this can really affect our day-to-day business. Our employees, our friends, jobs, if these boards are getting recalled by us and the homeowners, or we're bickering all the time, at least we've got a management company still running the place and filling these seats while we play the game of musical chairs. So whatever happens is great.
I'd like to mention something. You brought up a very good point about the attorney fees. And I think that one of the major points is, because I don't know how many of you have seen this, but it's all over the place, the water meeting that they had at the church, and then people being at the Fairway Cafe with petitions. It doesn't take that many signatures to start a recall. The thing is, and I think that we were going to go into it a little bit later, is once we obtain that, when somebody hands it over, if they do, if they get the 120 signatures or something like that, is
113.
That,
113.
113. That's all it takes. So once that happens, there's a lot of a cost that, if we think this is a bad cost, just imagine what it's going to cost for all the election and all those sorts of things. It's gonna swell to a really large number. And so this seems to me, and when people sign that, they're not aware of all the costs that are going to be associated with that, and really how long, if they did a whole recall, that the new directors would actually be in place, like a matter of weeks. That's all they would have before the next election. I view it as an extreme waste of money, and we just wanted to preemptively let everybody know what the situation was at and how the process works, and that sort of thing. So
how many days that they would be?
Depending on what timeline, when it's turned in, it could be either overlapping or it could be just 4 days that they would be in as of today. And we also have, once understanding the process, we also have a form that's called a withdrawal of signature from a recall petition available. So if you wanted to withdraw your signature from such, we do have a form that you can complete for that purpose as well.
because I don't think that a lot of people were aware of really how it all works when they sign it. I've seen the copy of the recall, and it doesn't spell that out. It's not, it just says we wanted this and that, but it doesn't say the potential cost. It doesn't say the timeline of how long these people would actually be in office, and just the situation that it creates. And that's the reason that we wanted to inform, members before they go and sign that, because there's nothing on that recall notice that spells that stuff out. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, to put this in a little bit of context, can you hear me in the back now? Okay, thank you. There's never a perfect time to do a recall. Granted, when we started and people started telling me there's petitions out there, and I was coming in and out of the cafe and people asked me to sign it, and I declined, but it became apparent to me that the recall was a pretty serious event. And so we took some practical steps, like having an attorney that knows how to do recalls as part of the team to win the recall. We don't go into this based on trying to guess our way through something we've never done before. So the first thing I said is we have to have some attorney help, and we got to have some money set aside so that we can fund the recall. Because as everybody knows, elections take some money. Not a great deal of money, but we're trying to add up how much I want set aside so we can use it for the recall and only for the recall. I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm trying to win this and I got to ask other directors for money. That's not a progressive way for me to win this thing. So we haven't figured out the money side because we're still figuring out the process side on how it comes together. But ideally, the recall should start right after a general election, because then you got the whole year to work with and you can make it happen. But just by dates of the calendar and the fact we have to, by law, elect a new board in June, the month of June, by the time we get everything lined up to do that, we'll already be really close to June. So one of the things that some of the directors worked on, and I don't fully have my head wrapped around it yet, is they did a timeline of what the events are and what has to happen when. And I said, let's share that with the community so they understand what the timeline is and how quickly we can move forward with winning the recall and bringing in a new board, which, by the way, has the plus and minus, is based on how you vote. We could go through this and end up with literally a lot of the same people sitting at the table. And I don't think that's the intent of the recall. The intent of the recall was to get a clean start of new people. But you can only put in who runs, who nominates, how they get nominated and on board. So
I just have one question. Where you've hired Adrian Adams for this 1 hour to give the explanation to explain about it. I want to know, did you approach our current legal firm regarding this recall, who is already on a retainer, and we used for many other things. So was she notified?
Yes, she was.
And she chose not to?
No, we chose not to have her be engaged. She had no background in ever doing something like this. And I looked at the risk-benefit process of being able to successfully do a recall with an attorney that knew about as much about it as I did. And I said, I need to have an attorney that's done one of these things before. So I made the decision as if I had received the petition, which I have not, but I made the decision to try to get ahead of it by having an attorney lined up that really knows what the hell they're doing.
Mr. Adams, can I ask a question? And that is, so what would, as far as the timeline goes, because one of the things I think is important having you here is to substantiate this, one of those don't take my word for it, kind of things. But so as far as the percentage of votes that's needed, I had heard that it's 40%,
I do have slides. If William, if you can go to the third to last slide.
Okay, so the 40%, I believe, is needed just to do the actual opening of the envelopes, and then also the timeline.
Okay, the timeline I've spelled out in detail on our website, and it's fairly extensive on all the requirements for the board in order to conduct it. The 40%, I haven't seen your bylaws yet, but I believe that's your quorum requirement, and then it's a majority of a quorum once you've established a quorum in order to have a successful recall. And if the recall is successful, anybody can run to be elected to fill the seats, which means the same people that are being recalled can also run for those seats and be elected. So the recall might be successful, but not successful. So again, it's unfortunate because of the cost involved to conduct a proper recall, and it's complicated by all the requirements under the Davis-Sterling Act.
So if the 40% quorum is not met, like in our annual election, then we default down to the 25%. Does that happen with a recall?
It can. So if the Inspector of Elections were to adjourn the meeting to a later date to reduce the quorum requirements would also drop for the recall.
What would the requirements, the same, the 25%?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then what's the soonest amount? Oh, you said they're on the timeline, and I think Cheryl had that in a slide, so thank you.
And I had sent this to you. This is kind of a flow chart of, the recall process. If 40% met, then if not met, then it goes to no, then the recall dies. I can't read it from here.
But he just said that it doesn't die, that it goes,
To the reduced
Mr. Adams
quorum?
said that it didn't, if we don't reach the 40, then it lowers. Is that on the recall?
That's not automatic. You have to have a vote to adjourn to a later date and the lower requirement, the lower quorum requirement.
Okay.
Okay, so then that would need to be updated on this. So then it would go from 40% down to the 25 per our bylaws. Then it would go into the recall election process. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
If there was a vote to adjourn to get the lower quorum requirement, which there might not be.
Oh, got it. So go ahead. Pam.
So then if it was successful, and then there was a new board of 7 individuals, and then our second election of our annual election would then take place, and then we would replace how many of that 7 with our annual election?
I haven't seen your bylaws yet, so I don't know how many open seats there are.
Oh, there's 4 open seats for this one.
Okay, so then there would be an election for 4 new directors. And so that the ones that were elected in the recall would serve probably a matter of days until your next election at the annual meeting, and then possibly replaced by 4 new directors.
So then would the ones with the 3 highest votes on the recall be the ones that would segue into the new So we would keep the 3 with the 3 highest votes on the recall, those 3 directors, and then the 4 replacements on the election. Is that how that would work?
Yes, that's normally how that would work.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Can you go to the next slide too, please? Sorry, William, next slide.
Okay, I have a question. If we go down, our bylaw says that the second quorum would be 25%, and that's in our bylaws, so the 20% would not be put in consideration, right, for a recall?
Yeah, your bylaws require 25%. So the election process, if you look on the website, the 20% would only become effective if I would have to see the election rules would call for it, and you have to give notice in advance that you're going to use the 20%. Otherwise, you're going to follow your bylaws.
Can you go to, so this is just the timeline that I had sent that is just kind of showing the dates in which the recall process goes over dates by dates, which one's a recall, which is the annual election. And then if you can go to the next slide, William, it shows you just a horizontal timeline so you can see the overlapping a 4-day gap between the top one being a recall election and the exact same items that would just happen 4 days ahead of it for the annual membership election, which is on the bottom row. So that's where I think Mr. Adams was saying that if we could put it all into one and when mailing or things like that, but that they're so close together.
I was going to ask. Joel Greathouse, lot 295. I was going to ask, to add a monkey wrench into the scenario where the 3 top vote getters are in for a few days and they carry over to the new 4 that are voting. Can any of the current board here put their name to run in the upcoming election?
Yes.
Can occur, so they could run.
Yes, they can.
So they could run again, win again, and also be in the top. So they would just be like double, and then they would get on and just appoint who they want. Okay.
That's correct.
And to answer your question, yes, it was just, this is based on a tentative number as of today, starting the timeline process.
So would we have, so we
No,
would
I
have
just
a...
gave it to him. Sorry, it's like 15 minutes before here. I did that. No, I don't have a hard copy of that.
So we're talking about 2 different elections.
Correct. That's correct.
And how much did our election cost us last year? $21,000. Okay, thank you.
With pro-elections, because they did the whole election, pro-elections
Right.
contract. And they do recalls, by the way.
Yeah, I imagine
Yep,
it's
we already
another
talked to them about it.
21,000.
We've already talked to pro-election about it. Well, Cheryl did.
I did not.
So,
My thinking now, whoops. My thinking is we've paid for about a half hour of the attorney's time. I'm not of the mood to pay for another half hour. So what I'd like to do is table any additional questions for future meetings. I'll try to monitor when the recall is going to come in because we have so many days after I receive it to be able to call another meeting and sort out all the next steps that go on. So we can cap our investment of gaining knowledge of a recall at half an hour for now. Let's go back to the regular agenda we have. And as soon as we get the petition, I get the petition, then I'll have enough understanding to be able to start moving it through the process. I didn't anticipate.
Rick, let me add that if they want to save the cost of a $21,000 recall election, members who petition can remove their names from the petition. So all they need to do is to fill out the form. I think Cheryl, you said you created one.
Yes, I have that here.
So if they withdraw their names and it falls below the 5% threshold, you can save the cost of an election.
Wait a minute. Once you sign the petition, it's signed. It's done. Now you're
Under the election rules, the state of California, you can remove your name from a petition.
I had it as section 11108B and 11303 regarding election code. So.
Right.
So we just keep adding and subtracting names forever?
No, because at some point the petition will become moot. because you're going to have a new board.
Just through the annual board process
Correct.
of.
That's right.
Okay.
All right.
Isn't there, is there a deadline though on that? You know, as far as the petition is good, until, you know, a deadline on that so that we don't incur all those costs for are we able to set a deadline for the petition SIGs and the verifications? Because I think we have to verify all those SIGs too.
Yeah, the signatures all have to be verified. And if it turns out that the the recall election falls after the annual meeting, then the petition is no longer valid because it's recalling a board that doesn't exist anymore.
All right. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm suggesting a 2-minute break. We're done with this topic this evening.
So thank you, Mr. Adams, for attending.
Certainly, I'm going to go ahead and sign off.
Thanks a bunch.
Thanks.
Is this when they open the bar? Okay.
Next on the agenda, we have the YSPUC PowerPoint presentation. I believe this is just about the same presentation that was made at the water company meeting a couple weeks ago. And a lot of people wanted to see it that didn't attend the water meeting. And so I asked Cheryl if she would update the slide information and walk through what's going on with YSPUC. And she has agreed to do that. Can you hear me in the back? This is okay. So I'll turn it over to Cheryl.
All right, I'm not going to go into as much detail for those who may have already attended, but it's on our website. The video from the YSPUC meeting is already available as well, but I just want to go over this again. There's a couple updates on it that I'll go ahead and go over. Next slide, please. So discussion items at the time, we were talking about this petition recall information and legal procedures. Again, we got information that we think that recall is out there, so we're just trying to be prepared and proactive on understanding what our requirements are as a board to handle it. The history of YSPUC, the California State Water Resource Board, the California Public Utilities Commission, discoveries in our future and goals. Next, please.
Hey, Cheryl, can you explain the recall now is a different recall?
Wait,
right?
Say what?
When the YSPUC
It's
board
next.
was recalled by the YLOA Board.
That's
Okay.
this right here.
Okay.
Okay, so what had happened, this is different, obviously, than the recall petition that may be circulating. So this is different because the YSPUC board was served with a recall notification on December 10th of 2024. The timelines are on there of what they were. So then after a vote by the YLOA directors, because they're the shareholders of YSPUC, they came to a majority vote, that where the YSPUC directors were then notified of a petition for recall of all the YSPUC directors, which was on that same date of December 10th. The YSPUC then needed to provide a special meeting date, just similar would be with this other recall. It's within 20 days of a notification that would happen. And the YLOA board would have had been notified by YSPUC to YLOA as a shareholders within that 20 days of a date of notification when a special meeting would occur. And then a recall election would have been between 35 and 90 days of the receipt of that petition that was requested, so that is the time frame in which that would need to happen. And then a special meeting would then be scheduled to be held by YSPUC for the YLOA directors as shareholders again to vote either yes or no on the recall petition. So again, just like what we discussed here, it's very similar in the avenue, only there's just a majority board as shareholders instead of homeowners that would be voting on it. So then if it went to yes, if the recall at that time was put into a yes, then all existing YSPUC directors would have been removed, and the YLOA board would then appoint new YSPUC directors for all those spots. If no, was the majority vote by the YLOA board, then to the YSPUC recall, then the YSPUC board would stand and stay in place. So on December 10th, all of the YSPUC directors, except for one director, resigned at the open session YSPUC board meeting and gave reasons during that time. And at that time, Ken Sartain, as the board president at that time, turned over the microphone to me as the sole remaining director who did not resign at that time. And we concluded that meeting and adjourned it. And then others, those directors of YSPUC then did go on to social media and other avenues for their reasoning for doing such. So, but because of that, the YLOA directors had an executive session on January 6th, where the YSPUC was notified of the recall petition being rescinded, and they withdrew their consideration for submitting that petition of the YSPUC due to the other 5 YSPUC directors already resigning. And so the petition was then rescinded on that date. Next slide, please. So going over the YSPUC bylaws when it comes to vacancies, there was clarification that in vacancies in the board of directors, and again, this is on YSPUC side, may be filled by a majority of the remaining directors, although less than quorum, or by a sole remaining director. So that's what happened in this case. We had a YSPUC meeting a couple weeks ago, and where new directors were appointed at that time, which are Rick Rajecki, Pam McDaniel, Beata Olivas, Joel Greathouse, and Eric Jensen, and myself was already on the board. So then there was just a message from legal. We have BB&K talking about what that means and that it is true that as a sole director, she being me, could appoint the remaining directors open seats. Now there is still a seat open for it. I only nominated 5 others into those positions, so there is a 7th chair available, which the YSPUC board we're trying to work on some other issues first before we fill that seat. Next slide, please. So, history of YSPUC. I did get a lot of feedback on this, that people appreciated the history of YSPUC. So the Yosemite Lakes Owners Association had a lawsuit in 1982. That's when it started, and it was YLOA versus Hanover, Titan, Safeco, and YSPUC. The YLOA was awarded YSPUC in 1987, and I put it bold as an asset. We wouldn't have won it if it was in the hole or in the red. So at the time, it was awarded to us as an asset. The YLOA Board of Directors are the shareholders of YSPUC, and obviously when you elect the YLOA directors to vote on your behalf, this is one of the actions that they are doing on behalf of all homeowners. And then there was the use of Black Hawk Lake. At the time I had read through, it's called it the Blue Book, and read through that, and some of the information talked about how our use of Black Hawk Lake, and there was also talk within the settlement about water draw. And YLOA we still currently reserve the privilege of being able to use Black Hawk for recreational purposes, but I was still investigating and got other information about that at the time that we did receive it. I don't know what year things changed, and they found out that it would be too expensive to either have water treatment, water storage, the time of year that we could draw water off of it, the amount of water we could draw off of it, the time of year. So there's just a lot that went into it. So I'm not sure when our water draw was negated, but sometime between 1987 and I'm guessing 2010-ish, but I don't know we're somewhere in between that. So for many years, the YSPUC loaned money to the YLOA, and it wasn't the other way around. As we've seen in more recent years, the YLOA as homeowners, we've been lending money or moving money between the two entities. And I think as a board, we'd like that to kind of stop and have the YSPUC be self-sufficient and not rely on homeowners' assessments to go towards loaning money over to YSPUC. In recent years, YLOA has been losing money to YSPUC because YSPUC has been operating at a loss. And when I pulled this data, there's hyperlinks on it if you go to these slides online. But when you go to it, it gives you 12 years. And out of those 12 years, we were in the red for 9 out of the 10 years, or 9 out of the 12 years. YSPUC director's election in the bylaws. It actually is supposed to have been held in May. It's the fourth Wednesday in May at 10 a.m. It's very specific. So the YSPUC will be giving over a ballot to the YLOA directors, meeting the required timelines for that election to happen. And it's a much more seamless. Obviously, it's one ballot that would be submitted to the YLOA board to vote on the directors that would be applying at that time. All right, next slide, please. This is just, and I know it's tiny, so again, when you can see the slides online, you can look at these numbers, but some of them are pretty shocking. But it shows you from 2011, 2012 was not actually listed in this website. I couldn't find the numbers, but more alarmingly, I think, I can't see from here, but I'm guessing the 2023 was like 568-ish. I can't read it from here, but still tiny. Oh yeah, 566 for 27. And I know that Kathy Miller actually made a comment online that I was the director during that year, so therefore I should be responsible, but I actually was the board president from July to the end of my term, but in 2023 I was not the general manager and was only from October 23rd to the end of December. So that was an awful big loss in 2023, I agree, but I don't know why it got to that point. Oh, thank you. But if you saw the pattern here, in 2022 was 310,000, 2021 360,000, and 2020 484. And then during some of those years, we even received PPP money. We received employee retention credit money. We had a COVID relief fund for water grants at that time as well. So a lot of these, it's a shame that we had any type of loss on our books when we had such additional income coming in. Next slide, please. History of the YSPUC directors. I did have to make a change on this, so I thank Kathy Miller again for her due diligence of reviewing these. I'd failed to add on Eric and Joel Greathouse during that time, so they're now on this. But the pattern of looking at certain directors, and I could probably go back a little bit further and go through meeting minutes so we can see years prior to that of directors who've been on the board consistently and during years that everybody should be kind of looking at for a pattern of consistent directors who've been on the YSPUC board during times. Now, I can just speak from opinion. I found with the YSPUC executive meeting minutes, there was only, I couldn't even find any. There was only 1 year, and again, I think Kathy Miller said, well, during her time and others, that there was only one. I could only find one executive meeting minutes for YSPUC unless they're kept somewhere that I don't know about. But now there's executive meeting minutes that still we do need to update a lot, but those need to be put on record so we have access to having YSPUC executive sessions separate from YLOA and that they're not intertwined or intertangled, and that it's very obvious which one's for YSPUC and which one's for YLOA. Next, please, William. So the State Water Resource Control Board is an entity that we deal very closely with. It's one of our regulatory agencies. And one of the items that we give to them is the electronic annual report. It's the EAR. And when we contacted them, and we worked with JT on this as well, Jason Teeter, and he worked very closely with the CPUC as well on the annual reporting to have them forgive the fact that they had not been completed since 2018. One of the other things that we saw from the last one that was submitted in 2018 was that it actually listed out who our certified operators are. And we got into a really bad pattern for some reason of losing out on certified employees. So that started dwindling off to the point where we're down to one, which was our chief operator, Jason Teeter, known as JT. So he had a conversation on this EAR and was able to work with CPUC on our annual report, and they forgave us to not have to go back and do 19, 20, 21, 22, but we did get them 2023, and we're currently working on 2024 to be submitted to them as well. And then if you go to these slides, you can print on, so if you understand, the program reports and regulatory publications are on there, and water quality data is also on there. So YSPUC does report to the State Water Resource Control Board. We're in communication with them often, and I know Joel Greathouse, who works with this agency as well, but he said it's super important that we have a good working relationship with our district engineer, which we do, and we keep them up to date on everything. They've been involved with all the changes that have been happening on the water company side, and we keep our communication with them on anything when it comes to, our reporting that we get back, on any of our testing we get back. They understand what's going on with our chief operator, and we are still using Jason Teeter in a working relationship. He's been cooperating with us, still talking to our YSPC staff, still helping make all treatment decisions, making all distribution decisions, working with our subs on any electrical issues or if we have well issues or pump issues. So he's still heavily involved with us, and we greatly appreciate that working relationship with him. So you can also go to our YSPUC link on the YLOA page, and there's this Drinking Water Watch. It's actually super informative, and it gives you all the information about our water company. So you can now go and you click on a link, and it will give you everything. It tells you about, our system, distributions 3, treatment 2. It'll talk about any violations. Our consumer confidence reports are listed there as well. I recommend everybody go on there and just click around and check out. It gives a wealth of information about our wells and system and all kinds of fun stuff. Next slide, please. All right, now Public Utilities Commission. This is our regulatory agency. Again, then I updated it as well. But they help us in setting rates, ensuring compliance, investigating issues, providing advisory services, and performing research. And so we have the benefit of reaching out to them if we do have questions as a public utility company. Their mission is that they empower California through access to safe, clean, and affordable utility services and infrastructure, such as our water company. And then their vision's listed there as well. But I said that we submitted the 2023 EAR, and also we submitted the CPI, which we did that on December 27th, and actually today, I sent this to the YSPUC directors. We received notification today that that was approved from the California PUC. So they said they received it, they got our CPI, and it's been approved, and we're moving forward with that rate of approval. So I wanted to thank everybody who's involved in that. Rick Rajecki had a big, I think we completed it, like I said, the last meeting within 10 days of realizing we had to get it done based on the time frame that we were given. And we try to reach out to ex-directors for help. So we just started from scratch and had a great amount of support from Rick, Shay, and our bookkeeper, Felicia. Between all three of those entities, we got it turned around super fast. And now, as of today, it got approved. So we have that in file. Next. So Yosemite, oh, sorry.
When was the last time we won a cost of living increase for the water company?
Well, I don't think we made it in 2023 because honestly, when I was at board, I didn't know, and I know that I think Steve Brandon called it a COLA, but then once we actually reviewed, they call it an advice letter. So once we were sitting in the room to go over all these details, the last one we went over, we looked at it, and I don't know how we were able to complete them before actually, because one of the requirements is that they have to be CPA reviews, had to have been completed in order to give actual numbers, true numbers over to even complete that report. So it had been completed before, but in our review, it wasn't completed with accurate numbers because we didn't have CPA reviews completed for 19, 20, 21, 22, within the timeframes that the CPI was actually completed. So we all kind of scratched our heads looking at it going, well, how did they come up with these numbers? Because we didn't have CPA reviews done in the time frame to justify when those were actually turned in. Okay. So I just wanted to touch on YLOA assessments and the overlap on how these things happen between YLOA and YSPUC. So in 2015 is when the PRP project was proposed, and we got a big jump at 20% in that year. And then this kind of just shows you and then 2019, you'll see that we got another 20% hit on HOA assessments. So this is just more of an informational, but it talked about inflation.
Can I add something to that? If you look really good at this chart, you can see that our assessments were quite a bit larger than the cost of living that was happened for each year.
Quite a bit larger, but I think during 2015 it was with the promise of that they were going to do that PRP project, and I can't remember if it was in 2019. That other 20% was on the Fix Our Stuff guarantee as well. So we had these big hikes. Personally, in my opinion, they should have been done through a special assessment so that we tracked that money, or a special assessment that could be tracked and reporting could be made so that we know when homeowners are promised, we're going to work on the PRP project, or we're going to work on roads, or doing a special assessment that affects all of us and our dues. If we're going to get that, then we should know how the money's being spent, the project's getting done. And instead, it was just rolled into our assessments with no true accounting that I could find. That there was how much work was done, how much materials were done based on the project of things that said they were supposed to be done. It was very super hard to track. So to the point where I don't know if we can track it.
Can I add something else to that? 2015, that 20% increase, it was a promise to the homeowners, $750,000 per year to the PRP project. So, and then another thing too, in 2018, they created a department, Department 16, and that was the PRP department. And it would break down the supplies, what was used, how much it cost us. It had everything broken down just like we had for the other departments. And that continued to stop after 2018.
Well, and I should have updated for 2023 and 2024. This was an old one that actually the previous GM had sent to me when I did a document request, which, yeah, I did do a lot of document requests as a director. I did it as a homeowner, and I think everybody has the right to do that. I had the legal right to access records. And so I recommend anybody who's curious about any type of association records that you should not be shamed into thinking that you're asking for too much, or what reason you're asking. If you have a legal right to it, then ask away, and we'll get you those documentations. I know when I was board president, we worked on an awful lot for people, and with no complaint. We just got them done. Next slide, please.
Cheryl, I had a question while you're doing this. Is Roser CPA the CPA firm that we had with YSPUC back in 2019? I have a financial statement from 2019. And then I also have a balance sheet and profit and loss from 2020 and 2021. So
the profit and loss is not a CPA review.
I understand, but I'm not sure if this might have been from, I have to find out exactly where this particular financial report came from, because you're stating there weren't any
CPA
numbers.
reviews.
I
didn't
understand.
say that. I said CPA reviews.
I understand. Roser CPA is a CPA firm.
Correct, but that's not what a review is, though.
I'm asking, were any of these considered when you were in charge of the water board as a possibility of getting a COLA increase on the rates?
For 2023, no. Why would I look at 2019? Why would I look at 2019 for 2023?
They're 2020 and 2021. That's what I'm asking.
They said that there were, why didn't I look at that? Honestly, I didn't have time to be doing that, and I didn't understand what needed to be done, but I can own that. And I had other directors that were on the board with me too, that people could have taken over and done those things. And so, yeah.
You were on the board?
All right, no worries. Operation Self-Sufficiency, AKA the PRP Pipeline Replacement Project, AKA PRP Pipeline Repair Project, and then the recently rebranded to the Infrastructure Project. So if you go on to Yosemite Lakes Park, there's a history of when certain equipment was purchased. We have this, expensive piece of equipment called a zipper, trencher. Sorry, the trencher. We had another one called the Grizzly, and then there was a trencher, compactor, and a mini excavator. So a lot of equipment was purchased with, I think at the time, the idea of thinking that we could handle it in-house starting in, I think the date's on the top of there, 2015. Now, Rick could probably attest to this, that what was done with the equipment for 2 years until we actually laid pipe in the ground and what actually happened with that equipment. But I don't know how much work was done for probably the first 2 years as much as a learning curve and a learning process that was done with this equipment with both directors and employees at the time.
I have a question. Are you aware that a trencher to rent is $34,000 a month to use a trencher? So, and we have one in our possession. So I just want to make that clear so you're aware $34,000 a month if we were to use and rent a trencher,
Okay,
in which we have.
Okay, do you think that the people who used it were qualified to use a trencher and to put it in the ground?
I don't know.
Well, I don't either, but it didn't look. Well, thanks for the numbers.
I, for one, will never rent a trencher.
Yeah.
But
So-
another thing I'd like to bring up a point is that if we have a company come in here and lay our pipe for three months out of the year and do twice as much what we have laid in a year, they usually come in with their own engineer and they come in with their own equipment.
Yes,
You
they
know,
can.
you know, we've had that trencher, and look, how many years now? 9 years that we paid insurance, and we paid payments on.
Not yet.
Just-
Almost.
And without people to operate it, I wonder, I mean, I'm sure it's still operable, but I mean, you always risk those things of the mice chewing the wires. I mean, if it's just, if we were actually using it, Rose, but to just sit. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like me saying, like, I bought a carpet cleaner. I don't know why my floors aren't clean yet, though. But you know what I'm saying is, unless somebody's operating and using it, it doesn't do you any good.
Next slide, please.
I believe they had qualified people at the time.
No,
Which year?
we didn't.
I don't know.
But you said you believe that we had qualified people at the time. Which year?
Well, let's see. I think it's even in your slide, right? The trencher has arrived this morning. The Veneer 1755 trencher for the operating self-sufficiency plan to rebuild our crumbling water system rumbled into YLP on a semi-trailer. And let's see. I'd have to find out how
But does
many
it say-
times it was used.
Or what qualified people used it, what maintenance was done. Ken said that there was a maintenance agreement on, so that hopefully it was maintained and has been maintained. But can you guarantee that the people who were certified for distribution, for treatment, and when it was being put in the ground had proper training and knew exactly what they were doing? Would you guarantee that work?
Joel, would you like to answer that question?
I think it's to move forward. I think it's fair to say the trencher had a useful purpose for a while, and we discovered the complexities around being able to consistently staff an organization to do the trenching and put in the pipe became problematic. We lost people for a variety of reasons, and we reached a point where the trencher has now been sitting idle for an extended period of time. And I believe there's pretty much a consensus across the board of taking action on selling the trencher, recovering as much funds as we can, and using that to help fund a reserve for the water company because it has insufficient reserves. So there's some good news that's coming regarding the trencher that's just sitting there.
Okay.
So it's I don't want to criticize people that made a heck of an effort years ago when we tried to do this ourselves, but we've come to the conclusion there's smarter ways for us to do this going forward, and we just want to take advantage of those.
You mind if Joel
So,
says a statement?
Let's move on
Yeah,
past the
yeah,
trencher.
Sure, yeah, just real quick. I mean, that was the reason I ran for the project. Was it was announced publicly right before the elections, and I knew it wasn't sustainable from day one. So I was trying to get it outsourced from day one. It's not a sustainable model, so we don't need to get into that. The problem is there was some qualified work done. The problem is we couldn't staff. This was a 10-year project. We couldn't staff a crew 12 months. Yeah. And they get work 12 months anyways. They're shut down. That guy, Ken Harrington, the boards back then made him do 2 jobs, didn't pay him. They promised they'd be bringing in somebody else. No, that's why the water company's management went down for the last 10 years, because he was sidetracked somewhere else. It wasn't fair. This wasn't sustainable. When I was on the board, they would give us excuses. I was on the board for 3 years, the first 3 years of this project. They would give us excuses. We can't keep the staff. We've got a sandwich maker. That's the quote I remember, a sandwich maker from Hillside. That's fine. We're hiring local people. But they weren't a qualified crew together long term. We can't keep a crew. We can't afford it. And the board, they were not, they did their best what they thought it could cost. It was a good idea. We've had qualified people working on it, but they didn't know the true cost of this project. In my career at that point, I already had enough knowledge where I knew that it wasn't going to be, but it was hard to convince people.
And I see there's a gentleman behind you.
Yeah, I had a question. Mark Pansing, Lot 121, I think. I heard a comment there about a cost of living increase being applied to the water company. And I'm aware of these past history of the water company, and it hasn't gone as expected. And I guess my question was, but I think I heard it answered here, is why would you ask for a cost of living increase if you don't, if you haven't addressed the root cause of the overruns? Why? I mean, you can't just say we have a $500,000 underage and go, we need a cost of living increase. We need to fix the root cause problems. So maybe it's more of a comment than a question.
Got it.
But I.
So onto this area as well as the pipeline challenge, and additional money was taken from homeowners based on this pipe, in which I had a picture of. But there's the pipes that were purchased, and then not only additionally to that, additional monies were collected so you could put your signature on a pipe or name on a pipe, and then you get the GPS coordinates on where it was and when it went into the ground. But we already had paid for that as well through these pipes. Next slide, please, William. So we already had paid for these pipes. Oh, you can go to the next one after this, please. Let's see. Oh, this was the one just talking about, I'm trying to remember here, extended decisions of YSPUC. Oh, thanks. Sorry, it's a little. Extended discussions on YSPUC. It talked about the general manager request private company to conduct household income survey at the time. I know Joe was involved in that. We didn't make it. We were over by like $3,000 to $4,000, so we didn't qualify. Now looking into that as well, we also don't qualify. Our median income range has definitely gone up since then, so that's not an avenue we could go down to at this time. And then also just talking about when these projects were trying to happen during our rainy season. This was January, and proper project management in the future would be beneficial, and also for people, who knew how to work in the rain or whatever needs to happen on those. And then the last one was there that I appreciated. It said there was discussion about getting outside bids for the rest of the pipeline project to check if the current course of construction using our own utility crews is the most cost effective. And this is again 2 years after the beginning. YLOA President Mark Fortner at the time ended by saying that the bids already received before the project was started would be reviewed again before proceeding. So although we kept it up, so 2017 to 2024, there was West Valley contractors that helped us finish the tie-in on Crystal Cave, because that trencher was sitting out there for 3 years that I know about till it got moved off of there, and then got that project finalized with the help of West Valley and also with JT inspecting it as our chief operator at the time on that project as well. Next slide. So there's these pipes that are out across from the fire station if you ever see them, and here's our Google Earth images. I contacted our supplier, who he told me that these were purchased under his, and I don't know, Ken, you were on the board at the time when these were purchased, so I don't know if you have any information, but do you know how much we paid for that supply?
As far as how much?
Yes.
Well, I don't know exact figures, but I do know the reason we purchased an additional.
Can you go to Mike?
The reason we purchased an additional pallet or the pallets of pipe is because we got a deal on, when we got.
He's saying that we got a deal. I don't know if people can hear online.
We got a deal on the pipe, so we bought it when the price was low with the intention of installing it.
Yeah, and Bernie did say that he was told that the intention was that they would be able to do 100 feet a week, but that didn't happen. So unfortunately, the pipes have sat out for quite a while, and you just see the Google Earth images of when we first got them. And then you can even go to Google Earth. If you look at those, you can go back to 2015 when we had one stack of pipes, and kind of the progression of when they did use those, how long it took for that pipe supply to diminish, and then it gets stacked back up, and then you can just see like that just sat there, and hopefully, and that nothing went into the ground for quite a while. And I don't know again how much those cost, and I asked Bernie. He said they got them through Ferguson. Does that ring a bell? He said that it was when he worked for Ferguson. I contacted Ferguson trying to get a copy of our invoice, their national branch, and spent some time on the phone with them just trying to figure it out. So I have not had luck yet, but hopefully we can find luck based on the year that it was delivered to see. But Bernie said that he didn't remember the amount, but he just remembered the reason, and that, like you said, it was a good deal, and they thought they could get 100 feet in a week, but that didn't happen. Next.
Ken, are they still usable? Do you know if you heard when, I thought you or Steve contacted this company and found out that they're still usable?
Yeah, there's been some question about, on some people's minds that because of the cosmetic discoloration caused by sunlight exposure has affected the pipes to the point where they're doubtful as far as being used. And I had expressed my opinion. However, at the time, I didn't get much agreement with that.
Can everyone in the back hear Ken?
So in the meantime,
they can't hear you,
Is
Ken.
your speaker on?
in my, yes, it is.
Okay.
In the meantime, when that happened, I recalled a study that I had known about for plastic pipe, and I looked that up because I knew from my own experience that plastic pipe is one of the most resistant pipes in the world, and as far as sunlight exposure goes.
So did you offer to pay for it to get,
So let me finish. Here it is. So this report by the report by this association is called the Unibel PVC Pipe Association. This is the de facto association for specifically PVC pipe for all purposes. And their report is the effects of ultraviolet radiation on PVC pipe, which was done a few years ago, and it's quite comprehensive and a lot of scientific data in here. But the conclusion is that the sunburning effect has little to no effect on the pipe. And I'm glad to give this to you if you
yeah,
like.
I would love that.
Yeah.
But didn't you offer to pay for him to be evaluated by some type of X-ray thing?
If there needs to be a section micrograph done of the pipe, I will do that. But I will only do that on advice given by an expert that thinks that that needs to get done. And that would be somebody that's well-versed in
the manufacturer of those actually would.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
they
I
would be
have
willing
a report from the manufacturer also.
Storage report, how it's supposed to be stored and everything.
Absolutely.
So are you saying that those were stored properly?
They were stored. I mean, there is no improper or proper way to store them. It's better if you put a tarp over them. And they've been tarped most of the time. But a lot of people just go out there and put a coat of latex paint on them. But the bottom line is sunburn damage, so-called sunburn damage, is not damage. The pipe is still usable.
Well, I'll be happy to read that report and talk to the manufacturer.
Absolutely.
Sure, I'll do my due diligence. Yeah, good. Good.
Can I add something to that? We had the first set of pipes sat out in the sun for quite a while, and we had the same situation back then, and a determination was made that they were damaged. Even a suggestion was made by the previous GM, maybe we just cut off the ends and use it for something else. But the thing is that the first set of pipes sat out there, and it concluded that they were damaged, and then we turn around and buy a whole bunch more pipes, and they sit out there again for years, and we're facing the same kind of situation.
You don't know that.
Well, I guess we'll find out. We'll go ahead and do our due diligence of researching and reach out to the manufacturer. Yes, William?
Cheryl Bart's on the line. Bart, you want to speak?
Bart Shalaba?
Or Bart who? Bart who?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, lot 36. Okay, so I've been here like 33 years now. And we've had a lot of this going back and forth with things, different issues.
Can you speak up a little bit more, Bart? Sorry, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Well, I'm right on my screen, so I don't know if I can get any closer. Is that any better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. You know, as Joel said, it was well, first of all, I've been in the construction industry till I retired for 37 years. And it's all been, major commercial building. And the job that we tried to take on, kudos to them for trying it, but it was way over our head to begin with. So Joel was absolutely right in saying that it just was above us. We've been talking about this for years. First of all, the pipe is meant to be underground. I'll just hit on that real quick. Not above grade, and certainly not in the sun around here for as long as it's been. So if the pipe was bad, it was bad. But that's here and there. We just need to move on. We've been going through things like this for so long, and the disruption has just muted any type of progress that we could have made. And as far as I'm concerned, this board is so far the best board I've seen here. And does the board make mistakes? Sure. But we need to move on. And when you get, and now I'm going to mention one name, only because he's a disruptor, and that's that Paul Hall guy. And I'm telling you, all he is a disturber, and we've had him in the past, and we go nowhere with him, okay? Some homeowners want to grab onto this guy. They're doing the wrong thing. Let's go forward. Let's fix our mistake. Let's go forward, okay? By recalling boards and all this other stuff, I mean, I understand why the board recalled the water company, but they're trying to do the right thing and get us off our past mistakes that we keep making and move on forward. We got to give it a chance. We just have to, because we just can't keep doing this. And my heart's sad because I love this community. I love the people in this community. And why we get into this kind of stuff, I mean, Paul needs to go to the sidelines. Nobody should be listening to this guy. He's an Adam Schiff in Congress. That's what he is.
Well,
okay, that's what I have to say. And I'm sorry, but that's what I have to say.
So, Bart, I don't mean
guys.
to.
Let's move on.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your comment, and I'm going to proceed with this. And I can reiterate that I think we do all have good intentions, and it'd be nicer if we work together, and if we could make sure we're focusing on the work for the association and not inner fighting. That's been said by our attorney before, is that the inner fighting has been going on for years between directors, and it's really unnecessary when we can just work together and get work done together.
I just had one question. I was told the pipe has a warranty, but that the warranty expired. But I don't understand how you put pipe in the ground and then say you have like a year warranty on it. Like, who pays if something breaks? Who pays to dig it up and put new pipe in? Is the warranty
become
even
liable.
relevant?
We hold the liability after that once it's in the ground, but there is a manufacturer who can give a 50-year warranty on pipe.
50 years.
50 years, 50.
Wow. Okay, so it's a long
better than
time
1 year.
warranty. Yeah. Okay. All
So
right. That's good to know. Thank you.
Why recall the 2425 YSPUC board? This was a compilation. This was not just my items as maybe previously thought, but so touching on it, there was financial and legal concerns, not finding faster solutions for YSPUC staff getting certified. The first resigned YSPUC president would not concede to selling OSSPRP equipment, deficit spending, getting money. This was a line I did not add, so this isn't a conversation. This is someone else's conversation, putting out, give me the money and leave me alone. More focused with being on the board than fulfilling fiduciary duties. Focused on building the reserve, more focused on spending on new projects. The new YSPUC attorney was never sent corporate bylaws, amendments, or articles, and I know that this one was also questioned, but when I talked to him, he said the only thing he got was from online, and so then on those dates that I have listed there, did I provide him not only our bylaws, our articles of incorporation, and also a copy of the Blue Book, which is that legal settlement between YLOA to obtain the YSPUC. And then YSPC board created roadblocks for YSPC director to get access to corporate records, and that took over 60 days. So that was in violation of Corporate Code 1602. Next slide, please. So discoveries and financials. This was the one at the time, and do you have that
Sorry,
one?
I had a quick question. You mentioned about the BBK and the contract for the water company. I believe that was the day that the recall was petitioned on December 10th. That night of the YSPUC meeting, I believe that was on their agenda regarding BBK. That
No, maybe
they had
two.
planned on, my understanding.
That's incorrect.
I believe that's what I was told by the previous YSPUC board president, and other members, that was on the agenda that night.
To be disclosed, but not when it was approved, Rose. Not when it was discussed in executive session and when it was signed.
It was signed, I believe, before that. Is that correct, the BBK?
Well, I'll have to open up my computer to see what date in November that it was signed, but it was a month before this.
Right, but the point I'm making is that they had every intention of submitting the bylaws and the amended
A
records.
month later?
It was only a couple of weeks,
No.
and then they got
No, that's not
recalled.
true. No, that's not.
They got recalled on December 10th by the majority. Well,
There is a
we
lot
weren't fast
more reasons. It would not take one reason to recall a board.
You can actually have no reason if you would prefer. You can have reasons or no reason. So discoveries on financials. Again, this was a compilation of information that was put together between Beata, our bookkeeper, and CPA information. Interfering with established accounting systems, release of inaccurate financial statements without accounting sign-offs before books were closed, delay in payments of real estate property tax, incurring penalties and interest. I actually had found these because we had got sent a secondary notice that incurred the penalties and interest. I actually submitted today a forgiveness for that with Madera County, so I'm hoping that they will forgive them. It's not likely, but at least we're going to try to get them forgiven. They were originals that were put into the previous chief operator's office in a basket and said, put them in there, didn't even know they were in there, and they sat there since September until we got the duplicates from the county with the penalties on them. Delay release of the YSPC reviewed financials fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, June 30th, 2023, both. Delayed release of the 2023 annual financial report to the PUC. Incomplete and missing reports of the company tariff book and consequent failure of to file the PUC in December 31st, 2024. And as Rose and Pam, please. CPI and that increase for 2025, which I just already disclosed earlier that we did get that. But again, when we looked through the tariff book and they're called an advice letter, that advice letter we couldn't again figure out. This was the one we couldn't figure out how it was submitted when, I know that Rose is saying in 2019, but then in 2020, 2021, 2022, no CPA financials, because that information has to accompany, just so you know, we have the review letters, it's called the advice letter, number 38, 37, 36, and on each of those, it's supposed to back up the financial information, and it wasn't what you're showing, it wasn't from a CPA, it was an Excel spreadsheet, and instead, we didn't know where those numbers came from because we didn't have an actual CPA backing it up, it was just an Excel spreadsheet with numbers.
2019 CPA report. I'll have to look through my files
That'd be
on that
great.
one.
I'll take any reports you can find. Yep. Hiring a second bookkeeper to document procedures and make recommendations with instructions to proceed without conferring with the current bookkeeper, resulting in the same procedural recommendations by the current bookkeeper and the secondary one that was hired for that. I think it was like $1,700 that this additional person was paid to have the same opinion and put it down on paper. So we do have staff reviewing that right now to include their input to ensure that we have protocols and procedures that will now be in place for all admin staff, whether they're away and cross-training and such. Duplication of efforts with the outside CPA firm, creating cost overruns, attempt to change current accounting positions through robust calls to the CPA and bookkeeper, ignoring accounting requests to ensure compliancy requests, creating excess bookkeeping follow-through, to many monthly penalties and late fees for bills not being paid. I personally, when I ran a report from July 1st, which I was a board president for like 3 weeks during that window, but not for these amounts. There was almost a $5,000 unnecessary late charges and interest fees per our QuickBooks reporting system of unnecessary late charges. DMV registration not paid timely, which incurred late charges as well, overbilling, and large adjustments without notification and approval from all YSPUC directors at the time. We've actually really worked on this process and super proud of the YSPUC staff. In December, there was a ton of them in huge, large amounts. And in January, we did have 8. Those 8 were for because we had new meters put on, and so there was kind of an overlap, so we did have issues on theirs, but we reached out to those water customers immediately and made sure that we notified them, got a new invoice out to them within the same day, and we had no issues with clearing those up. So those 8 that we did reflect on our audit report were fixed the same day. Reverse decisions to raise rent on a current tenant and withholding YLOA administrative service payments for service provided to YSPUC. Next slide, please. The reporting, these were questions that I asked directly to the California State Water Board on the first column. And this was back actually in July, and I wanted to get true answers from him, so I had a clear understanding of what reports had or had not been done. So the question on the first one is operations plan had not been updated since 2007, and he said correct. So this is from Orlando with the State Water Board, our district engineer. Correct, unless there's a hard copy in the file in the room or assigned on old assigned staff computers, but from what he could find, he could not find something at that time. Cross-connection control guidance plan had not been updated since 2019. He said that is correct. Updated or confirmed every 5 years, or if any major distribution changes have been made. And then an emergency plan had not been updated since 2017, and he said correct. So that did get done in the month of June on that emergency plan, which got approved by the state. And then no production reports sent to California State Water Board since 2017. And he said that the monthly treatment reports have not. Production reports are to be submitted in the EAR, which was completed. The 2023 reporting is through the drought portal, which is required to be inputted by the system monthly. So we are doing that. We have a really great admin she has background in this and understanding. And it says only a few months were reported in 2023, so we got caught up on those as well. The State Water Board stated that they had not received complete, accurate, or any reporting since 2017 for the required reporting, and he said that's incorrect. At a quick glance, that's what popped up, but he had found some other items on the server from 2019. Still, this was asked of him in 2024. Maybe hard copies were in the file room. So I think that there were some issues also between the state going from hard copies to digital copies of what they could access to. And then reporting updates. The lead report was completed, and Judy Quinn helped with that, a previous YSPC director. So I want to give her kudos and thank you for her work on that. The drought reporting, Mike Smith, another homeowner who offered his services in helping out with the completion of these reports. He was very pinnacle and extremely helpful in working side by side with staff and explaining the process, so they also learned what needed to be done and learning that process of the drought reporting. Monthly production reports, well and site testing results, BACT, coliform testing results, completed in-house by admin staff, and that's Debbie who did that. And so she oversees those items, and we appreciate her hard work. End of month financial reports to the bookkeeper, so that's completed again in-house, and those are done by Debbie as well, and she provides that to our bookkeeper so that we stay on track of that.
Has the financials for 2023 and 2022, the draft copies of the financials for the water been submitted?
Yes.
Okay, so is that going to eventually be submitted to the YLOA board?
Yes, as soon as we're waiting on one sign off on the CPA agreement, and once we get that, once it's finalized, yes, the YLOA board will also get a copy of that.
Will I be included in that one?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well,
oh,
for
good.
for YLOA, if she wants to see.
For YLOA, yeah.
Well,
all right.
And also, I know that I made the motion, and all YLOA directors to get the information. I had made a motion at that we get access to records. And so we did have a staff member work on it, and it's all digitally scanned in. So we have all financial review of bank statements and the other items that I'd asked for, audit statements, adjustment reports, and any of the financials. All of that's now been scanned in, and the YLOA directors, including you, Rose, will be getting a copy of that
Thank
digitally
you.
to review. Sure.
Because my understanding is the drafts had already been submitted to the YSPUC from Mark Greider in November.
That's what I thought as well, but
the draft for November for 2022 and 2023 completion of the financials.
Right, so we have a final.
Good.
That's what I'm referring to, not your draft. But consumer confidence reports, we used Westside Water Resource right now. They help in completing, they went back and helped with 2020 that we were out of compliance on, and 2023, and so now they work on our 2024, making sure that's up to date. One of the things we noticed in 2020, we went back because we have violations. Again, it's on our drinking water website to show what our violations are. And unfortunately, there were 14 violations that were put on Jason Teeter's certifications without his knowledge. So we spent a good amount of time cleaning those up. And this CCR was one of them that had 2 tie-ins regarding not only the CCR, the Consumer Confidence Report being completed, but also the certification notification that goes along with it. So we got a lot of the items with the state worked out to get those completed, and you can see all that information online at our website. Next, please. So discoveries on human resources. Directors failed to reach out to YSPC professional HR consultant that was retained November of 2023. And making our HR decisions on their own without including our HR professional, Ruth Evans. Instead of using the HR professional consultant, they would come to their own conclusions or determinations based on reading a website, failed to review HR protocols and read the YSPC employee handbook to understand procedures, had inaccurate or biased conversations with legal professionals, code of ethic violations by directors not being addressed by the YSPUC board president at the time, and the word neutering's in there. I received an email referring to me as being neutered for asking for corporate records.
What
more
was
concern.
Ruth Evans consulted? Because I have a note here from the president and some of the directors and saying that Ruth Evans, the HR, had been consulted on multiple occasions. Also, your allegation here of being, instead of using the HR professional consultant, they came to their own conclusions, determination just by quote unquote reading a website, although they state that they did consult YSPUC president and their directors.
And what are you reading? Can I get a copy of what you're stating that?
It's just comments back, that's all. Comments back.
Comments back to whom?
To me.
Oh.
I asked your question, was there any communication with HR professional consultants that makes this statement that they came up with their own conclusions, determination just by reading a website? And it's stated here, and I'll get the exact individuals, that Ruth Evans was consulted on multiple occasions. And are you saying that she was not? Did she claim to you that she was not consulted for various things, or are you just speculating?
I'm not speculating. I can tell you an example, but it happened in executive session, so I can't tell you the detail. But if these people are willing to tell you executive information, then I'll let them tell you.
No executive information.
Well, sounds like you might know that. HR issues are typically done in executive session, so I can't tell you a specific, but this is what happened. And I do have an email where a ex-director did state where he obtained the information and how he obtained it without talking to the state.
Yeah. And
I have it in an email.
Rose, you're not on YSPUC.
Make a
Have you ever
comment
been
to you
on
about that?
Have you
I
ever been on
can't hear
YSPUC board?
I haven't. But what does that? I am, quote unquote, a YLOA shareholder. Let's move on.
So you haven't attended any executive sessions in YSPUC?
No, you're absolutely right. And I'm unable to attend also executive meetings for the YLOA now.
What are you going to say, Pam?
Oh, I thought Ruth told you that directly, that they had not been consulted.
She said that the interaction between the current board that took over in July, then what was before, went down to like nothing. She didn't hear anything. She didn't hear about any complaints. She wasn't asked about anything. So yes, the reaching out to her was stated from her that she barely heard from them on anything. All right, I'm going to move on.
Rose can't attend meetings. You said it, Rose. Why aren't you able to attend? You're a board director.
Excuse me?
Sorry, I'll say the mic. Sorry. My apologies. I thought I didn't hear you correctly, Rose. You said you can't attend the YSPC. That's correct, right? You aren't able to attend the YLOA executive meetings?
No, I am not.
Why?
I am not on the executive committee 2025. I don't know
Executive
why.
sessions.
I don't know
No.
why.
Okay. Can any of the board, you're not able to talk about it?
I don't know why. Oh, I keep turning it on. Sorry.
We didn't get invited.
I would hope any of our elected officials, if there is a way our board can communicate as to why an elected official can't attend a board meeting without putting yourselves in legal jeopardy, I think the public deserves the right to know for any board member.
I can attend board meetings. Joel, I am still a director. I am still a director and I can still attend these meetings. I am not privy to attend executive committee meetings, period.
Since Joel was allowed to talk a couple of times, I will call you, Cheryl Bloom, and you, Pamela McDaniel, and all of the prior YSPUC and YLOA board directors. You know, if you ever read any of your emails, very well that Ruth Evans was consulted multiple times.
How would you know that?
You know exactly how I know.
Kathy,
No, I don't.
We're talking about more recently.
Read your emails.
Kathy,
It's not
we're talking
necessarily a
about more
bad thing
recently,
that you don't talk to her, because that means you don't need to.
That's true.
So why incur extra expenses?
Well, that goes to my one where I think, funny that you say that. So it was actually stated that it was more concerned about the HR consultant cost than the benefit of using a professional.
Well, that wasn't the primary reason. The reason I stated was because if you don't have a question to ask, why, you're not beholden to her to call her up on a daily basis.
I just want to clarify what Kathy said. Kathy, what we're talking about, right? Kathy, what we're talking about is more recently, not like in the past. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the time frame that I wasn't on the YSPUC board and you weren't. That's more recently. And so I think that's where your confusion is. Right,
That's not what we're
we're
referring to.
talking about more recently, and I understand sometimes the volume is awful in the audience. I get that, because I can recall sitting out there and going like, what did they just say?
You're always telling me to put it close.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide because I think we have other board business, so I'm going to try to kind of get through this stuff again. Building our future. Again, these were items that this was a compilation of YSPC now directors of making YSPC profitable again, plan in place to stop the $500,000 negative cash flow, 3.4 cost of living completed. Again, that was completed on 12/27/24, but we received notification today that it's been approved. The 2023 AR was completed on 12/27, and the current, we're working for 2024, hoping to get it done not by the end of this month, but now hopefully into February. And then facility inspection completed by a D5, was a walkthrough and a T5 certified professional, creating and updating policies, finding solutions to build up YSPUC's reserve, looking at options to sell equipment for cash to build reserves, and hopefully those reserves can be used to put those projects into place that are needed for our water infrastructure. The YSPUC management professionals, having those in place, and we are working on that. We have a lot of balls in the air right now on our candidates for staffing the YSPUC at this time. The Gulf water, there was a well that as a YLOA director I had requested that we have the well that's at the top there that was feeding the golf course to be tested. And so we did a Title 22 on that, and when that came back, it came back that it was drinkable. But there's other permits and processes that we have to go through on that with the state, and it was also recommended if we're going to do that one. There were also testings that were supposed to be done either annually, every 3 years, or every 9 years on wells. So now we have to go back to see when the last time each of the wells that we have, either that are in or out, have all had their proper testing. So that's another thing that's going to be on a kind of a policy procedures to make sure that we're in compliance on those. 3 years of financials are done, and the board will act as one board. Next slide. And then that's it. So that was just, like I said, we went through it as YSPC, probably a little bit more detailed here than there, but thank you for everybody's time.
Next agenda? Next agenda?
No, we have more.
We're going to keep conducting board business, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay, right, number 3.
I thought we covered it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did.
So we're
We covered number 3. We're down to 6.
Okay, so
We're down to 6.
for election. No, number 5, I would like to address that as well. So, excuse us, we're still conducting board business, please. So number 5, the election committee, we met last night and we reviewed several proposals. And so we had made a recommendation to the YLOA board that we move forward with pro-elections for several reasons. That we already have worked with them. They're a known quantity as far as what the product in which they do for us and the work that they end up doing for us is which greatly appreciated. So we are moving forward with the general election currently with pro-elections. So I just wanted to make that announcement.
How much is that going to be
thank you.
different than it was last year? Cheryl?
Hold on, let me get that number.
So we're
It's
up
not
to, we're
that
up to
much
number
different.
6.
While she's getting that number, just a reminder, if anybody has any changes to their addresses or anything like that, please notify the office so we can have your current mailing address for your ballots and such.
There will also be a document that, what is it called, Beth, that will update homeowners' information. And it's a member update information. So make sure you complete that. That helps us in the election to make sure that we are sending it out to the current homeowner and all the information's been updated for that. And then I'll look up that information for you, Rose.
And I'll just interject quickly that you too can run for the board. So I know that
you too, or
there
YouTube?
are a lot of you also can run for the board or run away. But we always are looking for people who want to volunteer to support their community, and there's a lot of rewards to it in spite of what you may have seen or heard lately, but it is what you make of it. So if you know you're thinking about it, talk to one of the board members, or if you know somebody that might be interested, handcuff them and drive them down here and we'll talk to them. What part? What part? What you just said. About if anybody is interested in becoming a board member. Yeah. So, just serving your community and volunteering your time.
Cheryl,
Right.
when do they do the call of candidates, or what that's coming up in the next couple months?
First, we have to actually pick a date within January to hold the election, and then you go to the calendar. You can do the pro-elections, and you put in the date that we want to hold the election, and it works its way backwards. So when you fill in that timeline calendar, you'll know exactly what dates are due. So it says right here, election for the 100% paper, which is ballot, which we're doing. In order to do electronic voting, the notification to do the 28-day review of the election rules would have had to happen. So that would be done by February 8th at the earliest.
Just an idea of like when they start doing that around March, don't they?
Let me do the calculator real quickly. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need an exact date, but
well, you are asking for an exact
well,
date.
I mean, a kind of.
We're going to announce it in an open board meeting when we get the dates and everything.
Yeah, I'm
we have
seem
to
to
get it
remember
approved.
somewhere between like March and April.
Mm-hmm. So for ballots right now, it would start March 17th, based on that's with a July 1st date, but our YLOA election can happen within July per our bylaws. So again, the send for call for candidates would be Monday, March 17th. That would be the earliest based on a date of July 1st.
Thank you.
And then I did have that amount for you, Rose. Let me go back to that here. So because we'll be going 100% paper with ballots again, it's $15,981. And then it does have with our page included, we did ask for the $100 to be added on for them to handle the Zoom. And notice for candidates. And then the call for candidates notification, they broke down on that. So hold on. There's one other thing here. So we don't pay the fee. I'll send you this so you can review, but then you don't pay for the fee for the hybrid because we're going to be doing the same method. Hopefully next year, this time we'll be able to have the hybrid method, which would be both paper and electronic ballots. And let me see. Oh, so the only other thing would be options, and that would be, which was also a recommendation, that we also include the prepaid postage like we did last year, and that worked out really well. And so, again, the recommendations were the prepaid postage, the $100 for Zoom, and let me check if there's one other thing. Include printed candidate statement. And currently, it depends on the rules how they're written, but including a printed candidate statement as well. So those would be the 3 items that would have been added to addition to the original one.
Thank you.
Sure. I'll forward this to you, or to the entire YLOA board.
Thank you.
Oh, I was wondering where you went. He's over there.
Yeah. You know,
Rick, you're going to have to probably talk in the mic a little bit. That one. Here.
Can you hear me now? What I want to talk a few minutes about is work that's been going on. It's not very controversial, but we all know that cash flow is not where it needs to be. We also know we have cash reserves of about $1.9 million, and we can't run through that money. One of the most important things we do as a homeowner board is make sure we preserve their capital. That's like #1 rule, the top of the list of things we do. I'm sorry, I'm not, if you wait, when I'm done, I'll take a question. It's both. It's both in terms of how I'm looking at the problem. Did I answer your question? All right. So our current path is one on bankruptcy. We need to think in terms of that we need multiples of revenue to solve our problem long term. Next slide. So I just did a little income and expense analysis, and you see down at the bottom we're nowhere near where we need to be in terms of losses and income and expense. This is for the Yosemite Springs Park Utility Company. Next slide. I'll take questions at the end. Thank you. So what we needed to do was end up with a framework for how we're basically managing our funds. And so we started out with we need to staff YSPUC with effective management. We don't have anyone in place there now, and we need to fix that. And that's underway. We also have a YSPUC 5-year plan for profitability. We need to start to fund programs to obtain grants. That means we need a dedicated resource. We've been trying to get grant money with homeowners working at it part-time and they're retired. That's not an effective model for us. We need to actually set aside funds so we can get real blocks of grant money to help us with the roads as well as putting in the new pipe. But we need to also look at how we raise ready-to-serve rates. We need to fund 1 million PRP contracted. We're not going to be looking at doing that work in-house anymore. And we need to do a study on the scale of YSPC equipment and assets. One of the other ground rules we set up for the framework as we pull together a plan to get ourselves to profitability for the water company is no assessment increases. We still have a big block of homeowners here that are on fixed income. And one of the items we have to figure out how to do is not raise the fixed costs for the that everybody has to pay. So any revenue increases we're looking at, I think, need to come, and the board has been very adamant on this. They need to come from other types of increases, which there's a slide that Jeremy has that we're working on that we'll get out to everybody.
Can't hear you. Go a little louder.
You can't hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So no assessment increase. Next slide. Obviously, we talked about selling the capital equipment. We want to fund the reserve account. We need a 30-year pipeline replacement plan. We don't have the cash to be able to do that in a short time frame. This problem was created over the course of like 50 years. It's going to take us 30 years to fix it and get to a point where we fund as we go along every year, and we cut an arrangement with an external firm to do that. We're going to stop the years of kicking the can down the road. We need to tackle this and stay consistent in how we apply it. Next slide.
Can everyone in the back hear? Can you all hear?
You can hear? Okay. So a lot of people were asking me, why did I replace or vote along with the board to replace the YSPUC board? Do you want to hear the reason why? Yes? Yes. Okay. In order for me to answer that question, I don't want to do it by just talking about the event. I want to walk you through what was going on over the past several months that caused me to come to that conclusion. So let's start with, I was originally brought in by a group of neighbors that said they wanted me to run, and the primary reason I needed to run was to get rid of Grand Manors. They said, you're a new face, you haven't been on the board for years, we want to basically move past Grand Manors, we think hiring him was a mistake, and we want to get rid of him and go back to having a general manager. And I met with a number of wonderful neighbors, and they basically reconfirmed that thinking. They wanted to go back to having a general manager, an effective general manager, and they didn't want a company from Texas coming in here and running anything. Then Dennis became treasurer. Everybody knows who Dennis is. He may be in the back of the room now. I didn't see him. But he's the one, very shortly into serving as treasurer, he came to me and said, we have a really serious problem. We're spending way too much more money than we're bringing in, and it's not sustainable, and we have to lay out a plan to fix that. And he was right. So then I started to develop some questions on Grand Manor's move to remove them. I started to get to know them. I started to get to look at the work they were doing, and I started to change my view on maybe replacing them isn't where we ought to be investing our time. It ought to be on getting the water company to a degree of profitability and focus our energy and resources in that space. So Dennis reminded me that we have a problem, and the problem's not going away. So we need to basically take a look at what we do from a capital standpoint to solve that. The top of the list being who's on the board and what are they doing. So I started to spend a lot of time with Steve. Everybody remembers Steve. He's a great guy. He became a friend of mine. And he and I spent a lot of time together. I drove around with him in his truck when it was 110 degrees, and he made me get out and look at every pump and every tank we have in the community. And he loved that job. And he's very, very good at it.
Hey, Rick, can you speak up just like louder?
I'll try.
Okay, thanks.
And I realized, I learned this from talking with other board members, that he also has a short temper. And he's been known to get upset and just walk out on meetings and say, I'm done with this bullshit, and not come back. People sitting at this table coached me on making sure I understood that the relationship with him, I needed to keep it as a positive level. And before he went into his last meeting, I spent time with him and I said, do not get baited. Do not start answering questions that you don't feel comfortable answering, because you're going to get upset and then you're going to walk out. And he promised me he would not do that. And then he went into the meeting and he got upset and he walked out and he resigned. So the guy I was spending a ton of time with trying to build an agreement on how we move forward from a standpoint of solving the debt issues we have was gone. It's just gone, and he had no intention on coming back. And I haven't talked to him since, but I view it as the loss of a really good friend.
Okay.
So the response from YSPUC after he left, I talked to the new president of the YSPUC board. And I started out the conversation by saying, we have a big problem of $500,000. We're losing money every month. And he said, that's news to me. That scared the hell out of me. He stayed in the job for about a week, and then he was replaced by somebody that I had a lot of respect for, but also had a very strong independent view on what needed to be done. And that board member really wanted to go back and get rid of Grand Manners. And I was focused on how are we going to come up with $500,000? What things are we going to do to be able to move that forward? So in response, the takeaway that I got from YSPUC was, your job is to basically give me the money I need to run things. You have no expertise. I have no expertise in a water company or in making wells or pumping it out of the ground or the tanks or the whole process of gravity feed. But I do know business and I do know finance, and that approach had reached a point where it was no longer effective. We needed to have a fresh look at things. And at the very point in time when I'm now trying to figure out how we move forward and get the water company to a level of profitability over the next several years, I'm told that they just passed a resolution that was blocking one of the board members from looking at their finances. And I said, we're never going to make progress if we're biting each other every time we turn around with fighting over things going back and forth. And a guy named Howard, and I don't know if he's here now. There he is. Everybody knows Howard? Say hi. So Howard pulls me aside and he says, we need to talk. And I spent about an hour and a half with Howard, and he explained to me that what has happened repeatedly with the water company is they make great resolutions. Some of them Rose brought up already, that they bring up things that are really important. They understand them. It's execution that's been the problem. We have a hell of a time executing once we come up with the list of things we need to do. We get distracted, we find something else exciting to work on, and the project dies out. We don't manage the hell out of it on a day-to-day basis going forward. And you say, why? Because a lot of these projects are run by retirees, and they want to go visit their grandkids. They go away for 2 weeks, the project stops until they come back. We can't operate on that basis anymore. We have too much invested in this community to do anything other than bring in professionals wherever we can that can help us manage our way out of this. So what I basically felt that we needed to have a fresh start with a new board, like start top down and address it. And I feel very strongly about that. I still do. I got absolutely no enjoyment out of telling a group of people that we were going to replace them with other people. But then I was also told it's very common that you have a lot of turnover for the management of the water board. So why everybody got so upset over that is I don't understand why. But as a last point, I would dismiss my mom if I thought it would help us make progress on being able to get to a profitability with the water company that we haven't had for a number of years. That's where I'm focusing my time. That's where a lot of the board is starting to focus their time. But what we need to do is, it doesn't, if we go ahead and do the recall, which part of me thinks that's a really good idea and part of me thinks it's a really stupid idea, I can talk myself into this either way, is we're going to end up with, by and large, the same group of dedicated people, as you see sitting up here, with a couple of changes, trying to wrestle with some problems that have been biting us for a number of years. The pipes in the ground don't care. They're getting older. We need a measured plan year in and year out to fund being able to replace at least 1 mile a year, every year, or maybe bundle together 2 or 3 miles to do that. but the ground rule we set for ourselves, and not all board members share this ground rule, is we're not raising dues to do it. We'll figure out other ways to save money. We came up with $500,000 of savings. Now, I don't have final approval to give you all of the individual line items because the board hasn't agreed on everything here yet. And Pam has brought up a number of items that she wants us to look at again that involve, and I mean, can I mention a restaurant without getting in trouble? As far as how many days it stays open, what does the menu look like, how can we basically manage the cost of it? Because it's costing us a big block of money every year. So we're looking at absolutely everything. We made a decision today to cut back on the swing set for the playground, and we're going to fix the existing swing set instead of replace it. Is that a ton of money? No, but it's enough. It's several $1,000s. I don't
It
realize
was
swing sets
$20,000,
are
I
that
think.
expensive.
It was a lot.
Whoever heard of a swing set costing $20,000?
Yeah.
I mean, so we're looking at each individual line item, and this is painful, and it takes a lot of time, and it's boring. And now it might be exciting to watch everybody argue up here about how old pipes are, or about something that happened 3 years ago, or is this financial document the same one? I don't really give a shit about all that. I'm focused, and most of the board is now very focused on being able to lay out a plan so we end up with a profitable water company that can contribute money to us. We've got to get it to that level. We're not talking about selling it. We're not talking about beating up any more employees that are there. We're talking about a measured, progressive plan which detailed timelines, assignment of resources that's managed properly day in and day out, so we can report on it every month to you on exactly what's going on and what's happening. We've made a lot of mistakes here over a number of years trying to do everything ourselves. We named up pet projects. And you know what? I think it came down to people honestly trying to do the right thing. And I think what Howard told me was very true, is it's been like this for so long. The culture is one of let's just all get along, and that's not what we need right now. What we need is a focused effort on the finance side. And Howard, I thank you for the conversation we had. Now, when one thing that I also want to bring up, and I hope you can hear me as I bring this up, is I set up a subcommittee called 2025. It's the equivalent of, what do we call it, an executive group or executive session? Yeah, I did that. We've only had one meeting, and I don't think we'll have another one like that ever. We had one meeting, and Rose was not invited to it, and Ken was not invited to it. And that was a decision I made based on items that I'm not supposed to discuss because of where and when they happened.
Is that the one this morning that's posted on the bulletin board outside? Mm-hmm.
That's correct. Yeah. Now, I'll try to phrase it, and I have a great deal of respect for everybody that's at this board, but they also have tempers, and they can respond in a very aggressive way when they don't like what's going on.
Oh, my word.
And what happened was we had the conversation. I don't have all the dates laid out, but after I said we need a new board for the water company, they took exception to that, and for good reason. And what ended up happening was it elevated up, and I scheduled an executive session meeting not because of the recall, but because JT had found another job and he was leaving. And we needed to scramble to make sure we had people lined up that would be supporting us should he not want to work on a basis of helping us during the transition period of time, which he has agreed to do. We have coverage there. The water company's not at risk. But when he immediately was leaving, we didn't have agreement with him to stay and help us out. He's a great guy, and he's agreed to help us do that. But
can I add to that?
We had a couple of executive session meetings prior to that. We had our attorney tell us that this meeting going on at the church where they were getting everybody riled up. She said, stay away from it. Don't be involved in it. Don't have anybody go to that. So we talked about it, we spoke about it, and we discussed it, and we voted not to attend. Unfortunately, a couple of board members said, I'm going anyway. And they did. And
There was no vote of attending or not attending. I've got the motions that you sent that day. Oh, there was no vote to whether we
I'm not
attend or
done.
not attend.
I'm not done.
Okay, well, let's get the facts.
I think I have them. So we ended up in a contentious situation, and I set up a subgroup for one meeting because I need to sit down and talk one-on-one with Rose, talk one-on-one with Ken, and work out where we don't start banging each other up against the wall because we don't agree with a decision that's made. If you want me to go into more detail, I'll be happy to do that. But that just became a point of contention, and they have all the rights as a director. Nothing's been taken away from them in that regard, other than I had one meeting where they weren't there because I need a little bit of breathing room to think through how I have a one-on-one conversation with my fellow directors when they're basically going down a path of confrontation. And quite honestly, I'm not a confrontational personality. So let's figure out how we all work together here.
I'm sorry, why weren't Ken and Rose at the executive committee meeting? I still don't understand why.
I don't know.
No, I mean,
As we may have interfered with Rick's thought processes, from what I hear him say. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Rick, why don't you share when JT went ahead and put another job and you had an emergency executive session, the results of that when you try to get that together?
This happened before. Okay, you want the explanation? I was calling everyone. I was calling everyone for an executive session meeting. I called Rose. Rose answered the phone. I explained to her that we needed to get together almost immediately as a result of JT's departure.
And I said that I was not a YSPUC board member and I should not be involved in YSPUC board business as per our legal counsel had made that recommendation. And I told you that repeatedly, Rick, since July, that we were not to interfere with the operation of YSPUC as a YLOA board member, and I told you that day when you called me as well.
Well, Rose, part of the cease and desist that the YSPUC directors received was that no financial or legal decisions could have been made, which is in that window of time, that they could not have been made without the inclusion of the YLOA directors. Hence why you were invited to that meeting as YLOA director.
And who all was at that meeting besides you and Rick? Who else was contacted?
Ken was contacted, Pam was contacted, Beata.
Beata.
All
Okay.
YLOA directors.
So a decision would probably be made regardless of whether I agreed with it or not, because
That's your
there's a
opinion.
majority vote now.
Let me finish my explanation because you have a right to understand what happened.
Good excuse.
So I got Rose on the phone and I said, Rose, I need you to come to a meeting. And she explained to me that she didn't think it was appropriate, but she said, I understand this is important. Call me, I'll call you right back.
In 30 seconds.
In 30 seconds. She never called me back. She never called me back. She ghosted me. She wouldn't answer her phone. I called up Ken, and I said, and Ken, I need you to come to a meeting. Ken said, go fuck yourself. That's a quote. That's an exact quote. I took it as a compliment because at least he responded to me.
Okay, but
Rose
wait
didn't
a minute,
respond at all.
wait a minute.
So I
What
took
did
it as
you
a
tell
compliment.
Bill Nouveau?
I'm not done. I'm not done here.
That's not true. That is not true. I
Other
did not
people
say
heard
that.
you say that.
I did
You were
not
on the
say
speakerphone.
that. What I did
That's
say.
exactly what you said to me.
What I
and you
said.
hurt me to my core.
Okay,
'cause I have
okay,
a lot of
let's
What
get
I
back.
said is what
I
the
got
F
past
job-
it, but that's why I
what
did
the
it.
Let's get. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, can I add one thing? Yeah, yeah. Yes. Okay.
You know what's ironic is that last board meeting, it was the audience doing this, and now this one is
Yeah. So, can I add one thing about that meeting? Is that when it was an emergency meeting, it was a last minute meeting, and when they called and said, "Hey, Beata, we're having an emergency meeting," I was up in Rayleigh's, and so I had my husband leave the car, and I sat in the car and had an emergency executive meeting, and it had to be. We had to discuss with the lawyer too. We had him online. They said, "Hey, we got the lawyer online to look at this situation." They read a long contract to me. So it was an emergency meeting, and he was able to get hold of all of us at the last minute. And that was the results of what he got from a couple directors. Those weren't the only issue that has created some situations for them. And saying you're not going to be involved in the YSPC, but yet you go over to the YSPC and talk to the employees over there on certain things and get them all upset and start crying. There's a lot more involved than just that one meeting.
So we had actually we had 2 lengthy meetings regarding situations that we needed to address with the water department, and neither one of them attended. And I even mentioned to Rose that, that I do really, I think it's important that we have everybody's different viewpoints on different things like that. And and then I was reminded that, Rose said about me in an email that I just follow along what everybody else does. She should know that I speak my mind on whatever it is I have.
Well, actually, I put in that email who exactly said that to me. It was not me.
Well, and then you reiterated that at that last meeting. And I just think it's important that, when we're spending all our time and we're spending hours in those meetings, that we're actually, putting together information and sharing views without all of the mumbo jumbo and all of that sort of thing, or without the things that we discuss in our meetings don't end up on social media as well. That's a really important aspect as well. So, but yeah, we were trying to deal with some water issues, and then next thing you know, we got this big meeting at the church. So it's very confusing for all of you folks out there that you have, directors at that meeting that didn't even go to the last board meetings where we were trying to really discuss some issues. And
I tried to have a board meeting in December. I requested a board meeting in December after the recall. Did I not, Rick?
Yes, you did.
And I pretty much begged you if you would please have a meeting, because to subside some of this confusion, also because of the recall, and people won't know. And I asked you, and you said, request denied.
A lot of us were on vacation, Rose,
Not the
and
week
holidays.
before.
We would not hit a quorum. We would not hit a quorum. We were all on, not
Rose,
available.
I tried several times. The complexity is it's around the holidays, and people said,
It was one week before, and I thought it was our fiduciary duty to review the financials, also to put the homeowners at ease regarding the recall, and to try to subside all the gossip and the social
let's
media.
move on.
And that's what I was trying to do.
Yes,
I agree, but
I
I just
agreed
wanted to
with
say.
all of your reasons. I couldn't get everyone to come to a meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
And we did get the
That's all
financials
I'm saying.
via email from Grand Manners on time to be able to review, and that didn't require to have a meeting to review them. We still all received those within the timely manner from Grand Manners.
Yes. And all 7 directors are required to review them, whether you have a board meeting or not. They don't have to be ratified at a meeting.
So can we move along here?
So,
or-
Rick, are you done with your item number 7?
There's one thing I want to explain to everybody here, so you have final context. Rose has a fundamentally different philosophy than do I. I view that the problems we have with the water company have direct impact on the homeowners association, and we need to treat it as one large entity in many cases, even though they have their separate board. If we shut down a restaurant, it's an inconvenience. If our water company runs into difficulty supplying water to the homes, we lose all our home value. That's my concern. That's my focus. That's my energy. Rose repeatedly, from day one, said, Rick, you're not on the water company board. You don't know anything about the water company. Stay in your swim lane. Just focus on homeowner association things, and we'll get along fine. I think her philosophy has a lot of legitimacy, but I also disagreed with fundamental points of it, and it became a point of contention between she and I. But I respect her views. I think they're correct in many cases, and I don't want to fight with her. But when I call her up and I say, I need you at a meeting,
Recording in progress.
she can't ghost me. It's like, come on, we can't operate with each other like that.
Let's not
when
do
Ken
a
in a
tit
moment
for
of
tat.
anger swore at me.
Let's
that
not do
didn't-
a tit for tat here, Rick.
Let's
just
move
move on. Move on. And not a tit for tat, because please, we don't want to go there.
Let's just move on.
That's number
Okay,
7.
Can we just do that?
I would love to do that.
Good.
Yes,
Then
thank
do
you.
it.
I'd just like to make a
Number
comment.
8, I believe, is on the next,
Sorry,
next thing.
I'd like to just make a comment about YSPUC versus YLOA, and I know that it's kind of been lumped together, but when you have funds that have been moved between those two entities and that homeowners paid assessments that were paying towards water company items, just to be clear, they do tie in together. And yes, the YSPUC conducts business as YSPUC, but I think that the shareholders, the homeowners, when money and assessments are taken to help support that infrastructure, help operations, help admin services, and that money was moving in that direction, that we do have a right and ability and responsibility to ensure that the water company can get back to profitability so that we're not lending them money and maybe back to where they are an asset to us, that they can give the association back profitability and monies that we can build our reserve for all sakes.
And
I know, I'd like to get back to that, Rose.
Yes.
Right, would that be great to get back to, Rose?
Item number 8.
You remember what?
I think this is me.
Hey,
All right, William, can you put up that PowerPoint for me, please?
Grand Manor's cost to Yosemite Lakes Owners Association. This has been an ongoing topic. If you remember, I've been to a couple board meetings where we said we were going to figure out if Grand Manors, how much they were costing us, what they were really doing. They came and made that presentation to us, a couple months ago when their management was here, and they kind of presented all the things they're doing. But people still said, we don't have our arms around what they really cost. So Dennis had spent some time with Jeremy, and I don't know, do we have a...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are people
So-
are people still logged in online, William?
The internet dropped out for about
Yeah, my internet stopped too. This is the slide he's going to do.
We don't have his slides? We don't have Jeremy's slides?
No internet. People are not. The people who are online can't.
Whenever you heard whenever it said this meeting is being recorded a few minutes ago,
It came
that
back
means
up.
that the internet had dropped out and then picked back up. So what we're doing right now is folks are coming back into the meeting, and that's kind of where we are.
Didn't that happen last time?
It did.
So,
Oh.
okay. So is Jeremy going to move forward?
Yeah, William's just pulling up the presentation
Okay.
for me. So in that presentation that we did a couple months ago, we had talked about kind of where we were for the last 6 months, and so I wanted to annualize some of those numbers for the board and for the community. So we have a couple different types of fees at Grand Manors. The first one will be the fixed fees. Next slide, William. Now the fixed fees are the management fee, which is $6,500 a month. We have an on-site check scanner that's $25 a month, and then we subscribe to the SearNet Masscom, which is $30 a month. If you annualize that, the fixed fees come out to $78,660 per year for management services. Next slide.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yes.
So I remember we went through these on the meeting. So, and that's $78,000 that it's costing us. We also have less employees in the office than we used to, as far as people doing. So it's streamlined our process of accounts payable, accounts receivable, and our reporting too. So getting our reports and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to bring that up as it's not like an additional cost that we're, you know, I don't know. We were talking about the employee cost thing too. Remember?
Sure.
So,
yeah, and that's in the next slide. So, so we're talking a little bit about the HR expenses. Is that what you were saying, Pam?
No, well, besides that, because the HR expenses were going to be included in that next slide that you're referring to, but for the 78,000 on the fixed fees, I mean, there are a certain amount of things that Grand Manners has saved us money in.
Yeah, like we haven't backfilled certain roles, and we've been able to use our AP and our AR folks to help with things, and you know, certain positions that we don't need anymore. We've been able to I guess, for lack of a better term, kind of outsource those to Texas. So, which has helped streamline the processes and made things a lot easier too. So, and like I said, we are evaluating positions as they leave, and so we have 2 positions that we've not backfilled, one in maintenance and one in admin, and so far we're doing okay on not backfilling those roles, and we're going to keep monitoring that to see if we can save the money on those long term. So then the second kind of fees that we have on our monthly billings is we have variable fees. So there are several different types of variable fees. One of them is the fee that is charged on the salaries. So that fee is 3.5%, and that's by contract. Our monthly processing fee for the salaries, that 3.5%, based on the salaries, has averaged between $88 and $9,100 a month. So the salaries have stayed pretty consistent there, you can tell, but that percentage has stayed pretty consistent as well. That includes all HR services in that amount. So, you know, progressive discipline, an HR professional, you know, those types of things, the handbook creation, all that kind of stuff, the things that you would go to an outside HR company for, you no longer have a need for an outside HR company because that's being provided. Other variable fees.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yes.
So on that slide, sorry to keep interrupting you, but
sorry,
on that slide for that 107, the amount that we were paying for an HR person, and the amount that we were paying for paychecks, and the amount that we were paying to have an outside HR person, you know, to help us with different things, it totaled to, I would say, it's close to that amount that we're paying, that 107 that Jeremy on this slide. So, so that if that helps, I mean, so that way you're not looking at this and going, wow, this is a whole other addition. It's money that we were paying anyway.
Does that include HR when you say that, workers' comp, health insurance?
Well, so you as the you pay the benefits like you would. Salary and benefits are still paid, and then our employees pay a portion of their benefits as well. And so that's kind of how the benefits work. But then that's all, you know, that's all passed through essentially, and then there's 3.5% on top of that. Okay, other variable fees, next slide, William, would include collections. Now, collections are variable fees. We don't know what it's going to be every month. For the first 3 months of collections before someone is referred to the attorney, the Grand Manners tries to collect on an outstanding debt for the association. Those fees are reimbursed. We bill like the attorney does. We bill the association up front, and then they're reimbursed to the association by the homeowner when it's collected. Other variable fees might include invoicing. We have invoices that we send out every month. Those invoices, those are fees that you would have anyway, right? So while you might see a charge for, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 to send out invoices, if Grand Manners wasn't sending out those invoices for you, somebody would be sending out those invoices for you. Now, whether that was in-house and that was done and you were using labor to do those costs, or whether you were paying a vendor, either way, you did have costs associated with that, and that's kind of what those are now.
Hey, Jeremy, can
Yes.
I mention one more thing? And I'm sorry, you guys, I know it's 8:15, but I just want to, before what we used to do when we had, when we sold houses in the park or a transferred title, we would get a payoff demand from in-house, and there was somebody that was doing the payoff demands. for us. So since Grand Manners has taken over with that, that's not done in-house anymore, and it's at first it was a little bumpy. I know you know that, right? So, but now it's so streamlined and it's so accurate. When I just ordered a payoff demand yesterday, and when I called up, asked a couple questions about the breakdown they had on it, they said, your payoff demand is going to be, you should be receiving that next Wednesday between the hours of 1 and 3, this and that. I mean, it is just like, it was just like, oh my God, it's such a godsend. Whereas before, it was like such a nightmare of depending on when it would show up or that sort of thing. So those services, things like that we used to have somebody that would just do those payoff demands. Now it's Texas, and it's been really great to deal with them. So, sorry, Jeremy.
No, totally fine. And then the next slide, William, the other variable fees, the last group of variable fees, petty cash would be one. The way petty cash works is Grand Manners. We don't actually have cash. We use essentially purchasing cards. Grand Manners pays for it up front and then bills back the association at the end of the month for petty cash, and submits all those receipts and everything back to the association.
But
and then,
Jeremy, can I just talk on that too? So, but by using that too, you can actually get all the receipts in one place. They're all itemized by
Correct.
coding, right? So
Correct.
there's full reporting of every single petty cash that's being spent,
Correct.
and itemized to the proper accounting code.
Correct.
Right.
Just to give you an idea of how detailed it is, I got my hand slapped about 2 weeks ago because back in July or June, I had a $31 FedEx receipt that I never put the receipt in for, and corporate accounting sent me a nasty email about a month ago. So it happens to all of us, but yeah, we do put those in every month.
But if we can, before they started doing this, we had petty cash, and there was no accounting, there was no balancing. It was, I think we had like $12,000 sitting in a little chest, a little metal thing, and
More than that.
yeah, there was no.
A lot of free cash just sitting
And
around
it
up in
hadn't
the
been-
office.
And it hadn't been
I'm
reconciliated
very
in
cash
2
averse,
years.
so I don't want cash in the building at all. So.
Good to know. We don't want
So what I did is I kind of took the variable fees and I said, all right, what are the variable fees that you would have regardless? Invoicing, the petty cash expenses, some of those other, the collections, those types of things. What are those fees that you would have? And then separate of those fees, what are the fees that kind of go to Grand Manners, right? There's fees that you would have regardless of Grand Manners, and there's fees that you have just because of Grand Manners. And so average paid to Grand Manners, less expenses YLOA would incur regardless has been averaging $1628.45, so that annualized amount comes out to $19,541. Next slide, William. So if you see the totals are what we've got here about how much Grand Manners is costing, the fixed costs are about $78,660. The admin costs are around $19,500, and then the HR costs, the salary costs, are around $107,000. Total that up, it's $205,601, which comes out to roughly 3.8% of the budget. So that is just an annualized version of those expenses.
We lose more money on the restaurants every year than we're paying Grand Manor.
I don't know if everybody heard that.
Oh, did you hear that in the back? We lose more money on the restaurant on an annual basis than what Grand Manor's costing us on an annual basis. So for those that wanted me to run about a year ago to get rid of Grand Manners, I'm not going there.
I'd like to add another thing too, is that before Grand Manners came in, and when Jonathan was our GM, and how they were trying to resolve all of our financial problems, because they were a mess, wrong codes, everything, and I mean we couldn't even find the PPP money and the employee retention money. And we finally found it not too long ago, before the financials went to Tom Bell, our CPA. But we found it sitting in an equity account when it should have been in an income account. So those kind of things. A lot of things were miscoded, and it was a mess. And then you had part of the financials on Zoho, and then you had other part of financials on TOPS. And those two programs, or APPs, whatever you call them, they were supposed to be merged together about 4 or 5 years ago. Now, how long does it take a company to do the conversion of two softwares? It usually takes, what, 6 months, 4 months? 4 years later. And our bookkeeper was able to combine the Zoho, combine the tops, and then also she had the Excel spreadsheets that she had to look at. So there was just a lot, and then there was issues with accruals, and it's just, she was amazing what she has done, and she was able to get those financials to the point. And it didn't take 3 months to do. When you have 2 or 3 years to do, it does not take 3 months, 4 months to do. And another thing, we didn't have access to the financials until October the 31st of 2023, and that's when our previous GM resigned. Then we were able to have full access to the financials. I even personally myself asked for information on financials and was denied numerous times, not only as a member, but when I became a director, I had the same problem. So now the board of 2023, July of 2023, because we're a fiscal year, we have worked diligently to get those financials, and it's what we have accomplished, and it wasn't for Felicia, but what we have accomplished in getting all these records straightened up, finding all the deficiencies, finding all the things that needed to be reversed out that was unnecessary expenses. And we were able to do an awful lot just in that small time frame to get our financials updated and ready to go. And I tell you what, we got the 2023 tax return for the first time in a long time filed without penalties. So they were filed right on April the 15th, but I made sure it got done.
Beata, when they're filed with an amended date, are they still penalized?
You are if you owe money.
Tax
No.
returns.
No, you
if
get-
they are amended, not amended, but extended past the April 15th date, are they charged penalties?
If you owe
Okay.
money.
Well, let me answer it, Pam. So you file a return, you'll get a late return penalty. If you file a return with an extension at the extension date, but you owe the money and you didn't pay the money, you get a late payment penalty. If you file a return and you make a check with it and you meet the criteria where you're supposed to do electronically filing, you'll get an electronic file penalty. So, you're welcome.
Okay, next.
Where are we, Rick?
Number 9.
Rick, I had a question.
I'm going to,
Done, Jeremy?
Mike Smith, lot 2248. The numbers that Grant Tanner is providing, just ballpark, can you compare those or contrast those to what the association was paying for the same services before they gave it?
so I think what you're asking for is a comparison, you're asking for a comparison of knowing what the salaries were, all those benefits of all the services compared to what we, well, it's, and I can help partially answer that question. So as far as salaries, we had a budget that was set up. So one of the things for the salaries was broken down and had tabs, and one of the things it said was, each person, their benefits, and what the total cost was. Well, when through those certain, employees who are no longer employed here, but within Grand Manor's taking over and that manager we shrunk quite a bit. It was like 1.3 million that we saved on those positions not being replaced and all that. But to your question, it's so hard because of when reporting wasn't done accurately or properly to try to actually hunt down in the records what was spent on HR by that person, and then what was spent on legal, and what was spent, and actually going into each of those items when it wasn't accounted for in the way that you could go in and find reporting. We were hunt and pecking for the information. Example, YSPUC admin costs were then being charged over to, YLOA charged it over to YSPUC. And then we would try to hunt down, okay, how much labor was that? And then it was a generalization of an amount that was given. But there was no detail, and there was no detailed record kept that we could go back and say. So, yes, I know that everybody would like to say, okay, we want to know how much we were paying before and comparing it exactly to that. I can only tell you what I've reviewed as far as the wage budgeting that was set up with all the previous employees and what we are on that, and trying to go through services, it would probably take quite a while, and that would be an audit that, we have approved before a $50,000 audit of areas that would be an area that we should look at for financials and not an audit, and that would probably be the previous petty cash would be one of the areas that would be reviewed. There were employee loans, and there was a work share program. There were several things, but I think one of the main ones that is being identified would be petty cash would be the other one, and cash was a cash account and another one. So it's just unfortunate because of how the bookkeeping was done through Zoho, and it wasn't even an accounting-based software to begin with. It was manipulated to turn into that. I've looked at our records. I've gone upstairs. I went through accounts payable and trying to get a way to compare it. Sorry, it was nearly impossible. Okay. So that's one of. This is way more effective because we have it accounting down to the receipt that's supposed to have gone to FedEx. So it's very detailed, and we now can say, let's print out our financial reports that we get as directors now are like 580 pages that we can go through. Not only do we have that, we have access to Serenet as a director to go online. If we have a specific question, we can go on and look at that check. We can look at anything as a director. I have full access to these records now, and it's for sure, and it's detailed.
Okay, and one more thing I'd like to bring up, because I was trying to bring that up before, is that before the board of 2023, Dennis, the treasurer, and our previous GM, they were looking into a company. They were going to hire a company, and this company was going to create a whole department just to resolve our financials. And they were going to take over the admin part of the association. So we would have lost employees. Most of the employees would have been gone if this would have taken place. And this company was going to charge us just for level 1 to get our financials straightened out, and the most important level, just level 1, $9,500 a month. And then there was level 2 and level 3. So I don't know what they were going to charge for those 2 levels, but they were going to create a whole department, hire a manager, hire admin people. And so at that point, if that would have happened, the cost would have been extremely high, and not only that, we would have had employees that would have lost their jobs up there in administration.
I got to also throw in there, too, that when Jeremy was hired here, he had just a ton. He's been trying to clean up a lot of messes that we've incurred over many years. And so having, and I think Beth can attest to this, is that we didn't really have a protocol in the office. When I first got hired on the board and I went in there were credit cards that were 2 credit cards. One was in the name of a previous employee, and everybody was using that card. It was so just having that sort of thing available, protocol, and Jeremy cleaning up these messes, and with the assistance of Beth over there too. I feel it's invaluable. And also our liability that we had before when we had just a GM. The liability factor, I mean, it's on them now, not us. We don't have to be looking over our shoulder and going like, what are we going to get sued about? I mean, they still can. I'm not saying we're impervious, but it's reduced our liability aspect a lot.
So let's move on.
So totals, Jeremy, you're saying totals?
Yes, ma'am.
$205,000, 601 annually.
Yes, ma'am.
Pardon me. $205,601 annual total cost that it's costing us to have Grand Manors here. Is that correct? Annually?
Yeah.
And if you divide that by 12, that's 17,000 and additional monies each month, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, not additional, Beth. Rose, remember we talked about that of those funds, we're not paying our HR person. We're not paying for paychecks. There's things. Remember when we went over in the meeting and we countered it?
Look at these numbers right here, Pam.
We're not paying for workman's comp. They're doing all that.
Right. But this is in addition.
What we did when we did the town hall is I kind of gave a list of some of the things that you no longer pay for, right? So, for example, you no longer pay for employment practices insurance. We outlined some of the fees that you had with Ruth Evans over the course of 6 or 8 months. We'd outlined some of the fees that you had with HR attorneys over the course of 6 or 8 months. And so when we put that together a couple months ago, that was kind of the presentation model, was there was more comparison in it to what you were actually paying. And we did spend some time putting those numbers together. They may still be on the website, that presentation, actually. So is it still there, William, the one that we did with the town hall, the presentation? Okay. But it could still be on the website. But we did do comparisons there, too. So
How many employees did we have when Grand Manor started? Here, approximately.
I think before that we had 100. I can't remember if it was 100 or 110.
110.
And then I think we're down to.
We have 60 to 61 usually, kind of right now in our YLOA side.
And I had done a request before when I first became a director to see employment, just to see how many employees that we had and also in which areas. And like 80, I think I did a calculation. I have a spreadsheet somewhere on my computer. It's like 85% were for the restaurants, and the rest were for maintenance or admin. But we were super restaurant heavy on staffing.
So that's not
85% at that time.
To answer your question, Rose, that's not all incremental to our organization. You know, there's a lot of savings that we've benefited from. Things we don't have to pay for now. Staff that's right-sized.
Are we going to move on to
9?
Number 9. So I move to nominate Pam McDaniel as the Vice President of the YLOA Board. Is second?
I second.
Okay. And then we'll take a vote on it. Richard?
Yes.
Rose?
Absolutely. Take it on, girl.
Ken?
Yes.
Beata?
Yes.
Cheryl? Yes. Pam? Priority?
Yes.
All right. So that is unanimous, 6-0 on that one. I also move to appoint Beata Levis as treasurer. I have a second.
I'll second.
Pam seconds. All
First
right.
time I ever beat her at that.
Take a vote on that. Richard?
Yes.
Rose?
Well, I will say yes, but I certainly hope it'll be a lot better than it was the last time, Beata.
Okay. Pam? Beata. Pam?
You have to look at the tracking record. We got those financials
Okay,
taken
come
care of.
on.
It's not worth going into that all that right
Yeah.
now. Beata? So, hold on. Pam?
Yes.
Pam.
Yes.
Okay. Got you both. Cheryl, yes. And Ken?
Yes.
And I hope it's as good as it was the last time.
Thank you, Pam.
All right. Those are the officer appointments completion.
All right, officer appointments are complete. Item 10, motion.
I don't know why this one was in the packet for everybody, but I already discussed this earlier too. So I do have our YSPC admin. It was the YSPC motion that was made previously for the YLOA directors to obtain those. All these items have been scanned in, and I'll follow up on it that you guys all get access to. It's going to be in a SharePoint link that as long as you have the link, you'll have access to all these records. So those have been scanned in. So that's not the item, though, I was going to resend. It was. There was, and I didn't put the date on this one. Sorry. No. That's one that we already had passed, and I was just updating that we did that. So this was a different one. So there was, and I'll have to go back to when this was dated, but I'm asking for the recension. Because this is a lot of our resolutions, I found that they're very specific, almost too specific. So these and the Governing Docs Committee, Rose and I both are on, and Beata as well. Beata's the new chair of that. But one of the things we noticed is that there's a lot, and I've discussed it before more recently, but prior, is that there's a lot of very specific resolutions. And so I personally plan on kind of poking through that and Xing and rescinding a good amount of motions because they're super specific to persons' names or an ex-director's names or a certain function that was super specific. So this one, I'm asking to be rescinded. It is Jonathan Penrose requested for the board to approve YLOA to transfer the remaining balance of the pipeline replacement project funds of $555,300 to YSPUC. The YSPUC will now be responsible for the pipeline replacement project. This was one that had passed, and I'll have to look at the date, but I think that we as a YLOA board and coordination with YSPC really need to evaluate as far as what money.
That was on June 27th, 2023. The transfer of YLOA $555,300 to go to YSPUC. In addition, $950,000 to go to YSPUC for the PPP and the employee retention credit. In addition, $650,000 to go to YLOA reserve account, and that was on June 27th, 2023. I just happened to have that.
Perfect, but so on this one, when I just copied it off, I didn't have them lumped all together as one. Are you saying that those are three different motions, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just
No, I think there was just one. It was just one. I'll tell you right now. But
So what are we doing here?
I just wanted to rescind that is the motion, but if there's, and we could table this and look at it later, because I thought that it was only part.
You said you were going to do some other ones. Can we just do them all at once, maybe, and
I
review everything?
can do that and just look at the entire.
I think
That's
you
fine.
should table it.
That's fine. I'll remove it from any action at this time.
We're tabling it for now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can vote to table it. So all in favor, say aye.
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 All right. So it'll be tabled. And then I will come with a more comprehensive list of the resolutions and which ones we can rescind. And again, the ones that are extremely specific to certain things that aren't applicable anymore, so that we can clean up our list, because also that helps Grand Matters management as well, so that they know that they can take the directives that those resolutions are supposed to occur and give them those directives to make sure that those things are able to happen. So
Thanks, Cheryl.
Reports?
Yeah, that'd be me. So I'll go ahead and jump in on the management reports. I want to let the board know that we did complete quite a few projects and repairs. You have a full listing in your packet. We ordered new signs for the rec center. We reworked and completed the cemetery fence at the rec center and trimmed the trees. We're working on the barn. We're leveling stalls with dirt. We are going to order some more dirt. We're paying for that out of the reserve account. That was budgeted. Monthly maintenance days were completed, and we replaced the tack room locks. We didn't do any work in the pool facility this month, but at the fairway, we cleaned we had a cleaning day. That included hood and stove cleaning. That was also done for the Blue Heron. We did hood and stove cleaning for the Blue Heron as well. We replaced the reach-in fridge at the Fairway Cafe and cleared clogged drains. Trails reflection point is completed. That was, of course, a lot of volunteer work from the folks there on the Trails and Rec Committee. Maintenance has been watering the new trees twice weekly since they got put down, so we'll keep that going. We added gravel to the golf cart parking area for golf carts, and around the clubhouse, we installed and removed all the holiday decorations, snaked and cleared the dishwasher drains, replaced the heating cabinet. So the heating cabinet that we use for events, it wasn't holding temperature, so we got a new one of those, and we got a new mixer, and then we added some reflective grip tape to the ramps and the stairs. We did have one staff member resign that was just actually in December of 2024. And right now we have a couple of open positions. We have an open maintenance position, and we also have an open aerobics inspector position. We are not sure. Well, there's some things in play with those spots, but number one is we want to keep. Corey's done such a great job at the aerobics role. We want to make sure to keep the positive momentum going there. So we're trying to find somebody to replace Corey because he wants to move on to a different position. So we'll work on that as time goes. Also wanted to let the board know that we are very heavy into collections right now. And Beata will probably give a little bit more in her treasury report next. But we are very heavy into collections, and I just want people to know that that's a really challenging aspect of the business for the staff. A lot of folks call. They're very angry. They're very upset that they're in collections. And of course, you know, the staff that are here are the people who end up getting the brunt of that a lot of times. And so I just want to say that, you know, the team has been really working hard, and they have been really, some of them have really had some rough days. And so I just want to let the board know that they are doing their best, and it is challenging, but they are doing their best, and everybody's doing good. So,
Jeremy, what percentage of homeowners are we at in out being?
I'm going to
collect-
cover
you're
that in
gonna
my
cover-
report.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, ignore that then. But yes, I guess I could just say be kind to our employees. They're not the ones who are trying to harass or do anything. They're just trying to do their jobs.
yeah. All right, and then you've got your department manager reports. You've got reports from maintenance. You've got reports from roads, golf. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions on these if you had them. The equestrian report, communications, Fairway Cafe, Blue Heron, and security. Those are all in your packet for you to take a look at. So if you have any questions, I'll answer them. But outside of that, I'm happy to turn it over to Beata and let her kind of give some highlights on the financial piece this month.
Okay. On the YLOA budget, income for the year to date is $2,6,400. The actual income is $2.75 million.
Can you talk a little bit more into your microphone, Beata, please?
Okay.
Could you give us those figures again, please?
Okay, and it's in your packet. If you look at, yeah, it's in the packet right here. Okay, it's all broken down for you, and I just took the information off of that. So okay, so the YLOA budget income for the year to date is $2.64 million. The actual income is $2.75 million, which is over the amount, which is good. And to this point in the year, we exceeded our revenue target by $111,000. However, we expect to be drawn down against that in future months. The Blue Heron's budget income for the year to date is $373K, and the actual income is $256K. To this point in the year, the Blue Heron has missed its revenue target by $117K. The Fairway Cafe, as year-to-date revenues, is $249K against a budget of $236K, and has exceeded its revenue target by almost $13K. For the year-to-date, the golf course has a budget income of $34K, but an actual income of $85K. This is $51K favorable variance of the year, so that's good. The Equestrian Center missed its budget income by just $466 for the year to date, and has a budget in just under $10K. The expenses, the YLOA budget expenses to the year to date are $2.272 million. The actual expenses are $2.88 million. To this point in the year, we exceeded our expense target by $165K. The Blue Heron's budget expenses for the year to date are $463K, and the actual expenses are $510K. So our expenses were over by $47K. The Fairway Cafe year-to-date expenses are $337K, a budget of $328K. So they went over on their expenses also, exceeding its expense target by almost $9K, which is not too bad. For the year, the golf course budget expenses is $234K, but has actually spent $279K over. This is a $44K unfavorable variance. The Equestrian Center missed the budget expense target by under $5K for the year. However, most of the significant expenses for the year are complete, and we expect to draw down on this unfavorable variance in the coming months. On the collections, we have 1.3 million outstandings so far. We have 31 CAN plans. We have 7 on payment plans at Ferrari. We have 4 on the YLOA payment plan. And then the total properties in collections is 150, with 251 new matters received. In the last 3 months, YLOA has collected more than $112K. So we've collected $112,000 in outstanding assessments. That is a big improvement, because before we used to have $600,000 that was uncollectible. And another thing I'd like to bring out to your attention is that it was on social media they talked about that the lawyer fees cost us $149,000, and they're trying to blame Cheryl for that. But I want you to I want you to realize something, is that we sent 128 cases to 4A just recently, and we are charged up front by the firm $600 flat fee. So you times that $128 times 128 properties times the $600, it comes out to almost $80,000. And so when you see a spike in lawyer fees, that's the reason why. It's not all the board is asking the lawyer for help or the board is asking the lawyer questions. It's because they are a collection agency, and so when we send in those cases, they charge us, we have to pay them up front before the homeowners pay them. So you're looking at $600 on those 128 cases per case. So that's why you see a spike in the lawyer fees. And then another thing too, when those liens kick into a judicial foreclosure, what happens there is that we don't get charged a flat fee anymore. Once it gets into judicial foreclosure, they charge us by the hour. And I mean, it takes nothing for the lawyer for those $300 to $400 an hour to add up, plus all the processing fees. And we have a status report, and on the status report, every time they pull that status report, and we have 200 cases on that status report, they charge us $100 a month per property that's on that status report. So that adds up. And that's all fees that we have to pay up front. We don't see it until the homeowner actually pays us.
Right, right.
So that if you see a spike in lawyer fees, that's one of the main reasons. It's not because of the board, it's because we are now collecting and it's costing us up front. A lot of companies don't charge up front, so it'd be nice if we can get that changed.
Beat, I just want to dovetail off that a little bit and mention a couple things. So right now, you can tell we have 150 people that are at Fiore. There's 250 more that we need to open cases on. That's 400 members who, 25% of the membership who are behind more than 3+ months or a significant amount to collect on. And so the one thing I will tell you is that's extremely high. I've never seen it that high. But what I will say to you is this is we're kind of ripping the Band-Aid off right now, right? We're putting by getting the collections process started now and getting these, having to eat these fees up front on these first 400 accounts, we are ripping the Band-Aid off. And what you'll see is once people know that we'll collect and once we start having a normal process in place that's standard and stays the same, you'll see that this will drop significantly, and those fees will drop significantly as well. But this is that first big initial, hey, we have people who haven't paid for 6, 7, 8 months, and it's got to get taken care of. So
I have a question, just curiosity, is long-term versus short-term debt, uncollected debt. Do you have an idea of what the proportions might be? In the short-term ones, is that just occurred in the last 3, 4, or 5 years, or?
So what I would say
when has most of the debt been incurred? Do you have any feel for that?
Yeah, I mean, well, when it's been 1.3 million has been the round number that's been owed for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we've been kind of floating around that number.
Yeah.
We went from 1.31 to 1.306. So I mean, what I can say is they are trying to collect all debt, regardless of whether it's time barred or not. They are trying to collect those debts, even if they are time barred. But I can't give you. I would just be guessing, Ken.
I'm just wondering if if the debt has increased, or the back payments
delinquency has increased.
Has increased over some period of time. Anyway, you don't have to answer that now.
Yeah, I can't, but I can look into it.
Thinking out loud on that.
Try to get that. That would be a good point, too.
Yeah.
Sure.
I appreciate that, Ken.
Kind of find out when the tipping point was.
Well, you can kind of correlate that with what's going on in the economy in general, I think.
Exactly.
Okay.
But 1.3.
But they attack it a lot quicker than what we used to, which is really nice, because if you miss a couple months, then they're right on it, whereas before it would be like years and that sort of thing.
And then the one number that I did want to point out, Beata mentioned it, but I just want to highlight it. Beata said that between 10/24 and 1/17, we collected $112,000 in that 3-month period. In the previous 3 years, we'd collected about $600,000, and so then we collected 112 in 3 months. So we've accelerated our collection pace, and we're trying to get the association its cash back as quickly as possible. So I think that's good progress, and like I said, it's been challenging in the office and it's been challenging on the phones, but it's necessary, and it's money that we need to get for the association. So.
Okay, I'm all done. To the minutes.
I just had a question, Jeremy. What's happening on the tennis courts?
We
Is
are in
that
a
on the
slight
agenda?
holding pattern. The contractors are ready. We are just in a bit of a holding pattern. I think what's going to happen, there is a water line underneath there. I think what's going to happen now is that YSPUC is going to try to replace that water line when we do the tennis court. And so I don't know if or we're going to see if we need to replace it when we do the tennis court.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a replacement or it needs to be engineered to see exactly what needs to be done. And we don't know what's under the ground, so we try to actually look for the pictures of when it was put into the ground. So
I've got pictures.
You do?
Okay.
Yeah.
Send them to me. That'd
Yeah,
be great.
I have pictures.
Yeah, so we can use those and
From
provide
back in
those
the
to
80s.
talk to a couple contractors and get an RFP on that to see exactly what we need to do to make sure it's engineered what needs to get here. So yeah, you can send those pictures because
Yes.
we're just going through offices.
I've been working on those tennis courts since 2018.
Well, I don't know if I can't say that I'm holding up the tennis courts
No, I didn't
because
say you were, but I just
no,
want to
but if I could just say I'm not holding up tennis courts, the tennis courts can still be constructed and moved as long as that ground's exposed, and then we can worry about. I really don't think one's going to have anything to do with the other.
Okay.
So you could probably continue your work and move it over, and then the water company, once we get these pictures and other things to see exactly where everything is, I don't foresee that if you're going to move that tennis court over, you just have to make that an access road where we know that pipe is,
Right.
and we just have to try to figure out exactly where
Yeah,
it's going.
I can mobilize contractors probably in 3 or 4 weeks. So if we can agree on the
Keep
path
me
forward.
informed,
All right,
please,
will do.
Jeremy. You know
Will
that's
do.
my baby.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to really appreciate the fact that Rose has been working on this. We use the courts a lot. I know a lot of people play pickleball, and there's a lot of tennis players like me and my husband that are having, we're driving to Oakhurst to go down to Fresno to play. But more importantly, is those courts now are treacherous. They are treacherous. They're awful. I mean, I can play pickleball on, but I refuse to play tennis on them because I don't want to bring bodies or trip, get hurt. So I know I would really appreciate, and I know my fellow pickleball people
Jeremy, there's 19 pickleball.
really get on this.
I will.
There's a club, a pickleball club, and there's 19 of us.
The pickle people stay right here in the front of my mind.
Well, if you walk out one day and you're barraged with little yellow balls just like being in your head, you'll know why.
Pickleball, get pickleball.
He knows, he knows. Thank you, Sally.
So-
Minutes?
Approval of the meeting minutes.
I have one thing I wanted to ask you. Did you already go over that membership meeting and voting rules that it's in here?
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to you, Cheryl, I think, or whoever put
I
that
didn't put it
there.
in.
Did you put the?
I did not put that in.
Well, who put in the membership meeting and voting rules?
I think that was just info for the
Oh no, that was just for the election committee conversation. We talked with that was all that was in there for was when we talked about the collection
It's
election.
Okay,
for your
so
information.
just so you know, Just so you know, that particular membership meeting and voting rules is outdated. There's an amended copy that I printed that was done on January 18th, 2023 that overrides this one. So all those changes that are in this one,
They're
dated 2021 or something, have already been addressed with this one in 2023.
Right, that
So
was
again,
just-
I
that was
did-
the draft.
And just to be clear, I did not add that in there, and I do have the newest copy,
Yeah,
and
I
I
know.
helped do it for
I didn't know who
2022,
did.
2023, and 2024. So we have it.
Great.
So I don't know
great.
what was in the packet. I did not put that in there.
2021.
Right. I said I did not put that packet.
I know.
so-
I just letting whoever
Let's,
did.
let's move on.
We'll make
Okay,
that,
we're-
we'll
we're
we'll
on
make sure that
minutes
we,
now?
we'll make sure that we archive that one and
All
use
right.
only
Are we
updated
on
copies.
minutes?
Yep. 12, approval of meeting minutes, November 19th, as revised. Yes, towards the bottom.
Page 89.
91, 92, 93.
Yeah, here's the meeting minutes right here. From last.
I have questions on the finance too, so.
They're like the last couple of pages of the whole board
I
packet.
made notes, I got notes on everything.
I have no edits to those meeting minutes.
I don't either.
I second.
Move to approve.
I just had a question, a discussion. On page 94, it says in the executive session meeting, which took place on December 13th and January 6th, the Board of Directors authorized its attorney to initiate an action for judicial foreclosure. I see those, but I wasn't privy to this information, so obviously I can't approve them.
Are you
Is that
talking
it?
about this?
Are you done?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
thanks. All right.
All right. So I move that we approve those meeting minutes.
I second.
Okay. Take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Me?
Well, she left the meeting before we started reading the judicial things.
Was no longer in the
No, we said that you could. Jesus Christ.
That was it.
Oh, sorry for the swearing. Okay.
That's all.
Okay, everybody but Rose upset.
So now we're on
accepts
to-
the meetings minutes.
13, liens collections.
Okay. Whereas the Yosemite Lakes Owner Association is a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation. Whereas the Board of Directors has the duty to levy assessments sufficient to perform the association obligations under its governing documents in Civil Codes 5600A. And the association relies upon the payment of assessments by each member in order to meet the financial obligations of the association. Whereas assessments levied against the property identified below have not been paid to the association by the owners thereof. The partial numbers are 092-030-003, 093-240-003, 092-200-006, 093-510-044, 093-520-013, 093-550-012, 092-040, 019, 092-060, 014, 092-070, 001, 093-160, 002, 092-230, 009, 092-340, 008, 092-040, 015, 093-480, 016, 092-107, 001, 093-440, 046, 092-220, 003, 093-480, 010, 092-040, 001, 093-440, 016, 093-450, 018, 093-300, 012, 093-430, 028, 092-200, 007, 093 270 002 093 190 017 093 510 014 093 430 026 092 290 034 093 510 033 092 040 002 092 080 010 093 060 019 093 510 034 093 070 005 093 430 030 092 130 048 092 170 110 093 460 006 093 040 006 093 140 011 092 150 006 093 510 016 092 090 013 092 080 016 092 260 021 093 560 005 093 440 010 092 330 014 093 510 020 093 460 010 092 080 007 093 300 008 093 430 019 092 260 017 093 290 023 092 160 006 092 310 012 093 460 002 093 560 016 093 407 006 092 170 017 092 190 001 093 310 004 093 300 003 092 340 020 093 040 033 093 480 015 093 420 023 092 050 007 092 210 002 092 160 008 092 200 004 092 330 028 093 040 0112 092 101 006 092 050 020 092 310 010 092 030 005 092 050 017 093 510 038 093 50 510 004 093 360 029 030 270 022 093 270 011 093 060 014 093 290 011 092 160 022 093 050 031 093 400 014 093 030 015 093 500 10 010 092 140 003 093 570 010 092 050 011 093 320 001 093 370 002 092
Everybody be quiet,
100
please. Try to get through
01
these.
019 02 092 180 005 093 120 017 092 150 013. Not it. No, okay. Whereas of the date of this resolution, the debt owed for the property has not been satisfied. Whereas the association will be entitled to recorded lien pursuant to California Civil Code 5675 and the association recorded declaration of covenants. conditions and restrictions after a pre-lien demand after a letter is sent to all record owners of the property. Now therefore it is hereby resolved by a majority of the members of the Board of Directors that if the debt is not satisfied within 30 days of the date that a pre-lien demand letter is mailed, a lien shall be recorded against the property by the Association Council, Flory, Recaps, and Powers, and that Flory, Recaps, and Power is hereby designated as an authorized agent of the association and its Board of Directors to execute and second such lien on behalf of the association. The undersigned, the duly appointed Secretary of the Association, hereby certifies that the foregoing resolution has been approved this day on January the 28th, 2025, at a duly noticed open meeting of the Board of Directors.
Hey, Beata, I have a question.
We need a second first.
Oh.
Need a second?
Second. A second.
Okay.
Then can I? So, and this goes to Jeremy too. So these people are more than 60 days late. Why are we recording liens at that point? Why aren't we doing a step in between?
Right. So these are folks that are at the, we are recording a pre-lien notice, okay? And so what the pre-lien notice says is that if you don't pay, we can record a lien on you.
Okay, so once we send that to Fiore, what are they charging us? What are they charging these people per?
600
for the fee. $600 for
Yeah,
for a pre-lien.
Yeah, we have
Wait, hang on. $600 for one pre-lien filing. Is that what you were saying? So, and to be 2 months, if they're 60 days delinquent, they're like 340. Wait, no.
So it's actually $600 total. So like once it goes there, now if they ask for extra services, they want a payment plan or something like that, but it's $600 total.
For 98 properties.
That's what
on
they
this?
owe plus penalty.
But okay, but I mean, they don't even owe $600, but they're charged $600 if they owe.
No,
They
so
owe more
so
than 1,800.
to get to the lien, it's got to be 1800.
I thought it had to be 18. Oh, okay. So I said, because it said here more than 60 days delinquent. That's why
Yeah.
it was a little confusing to me because I thought our threshold was 18.
We don't have anybody on this list that's less than 90 days, and
Okay.
most of them are significantly higher. And
No, that's okay, Jeremy.
Okay.
I just wanted to just clarify that because it was different from what my understanding, like you said, the 1800. So thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, can we go ahead and vote on this one? Because then I have the judicial
sorry, yes.
foreclosure.
and then Beata, I think point of order, just need to.
Yeah, who seconded
Yeah,
it?
Pam seconded it.
It was seconded.
So we just need to vote after
Okay.
the
These are 95 properties. These are 95
98.
neighbors.
98.
98 now.
There's 3 judicial foreclosures.
She had 3 more to it.
Oh, 3 more.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
So everybody in favor?
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Okay.
opposed? Okay. Motion passes.
Okay, and the second one, in the executive session meeting which took place on December 13th, 2024, January 6th of 2025, and January 28th of 2025, the Board of Directors authorized its attorneys to initiate an action for a judicial foreclosure of the association lien against the following properties. Now it goes into where they pay.
There's only 7 this time, so it's
Yes,
not
there's
so
only
long.
7.
Okay.
So
Stay
what
away.
happens at this point is that you end up paying, now they pay by the hour, the lawyer fees, besides the $600. So the partial number is 093-520-011, 092-150-005, 093-390-007, 093-090-037, 092-300-005, 093-570-025, 092-370-020, 092-250-003. And that doesn't have to be voted on. It was voted on in executive session.
Open forum.
Okay. Okay, where are we next?
So let him go for it.
Open. We have reached at 9 o'clock, 9:05, open forum. Anyone want to come up to the speaker?
I'll read the open forum. During open forum, each attendee may address the board for up to 3 minutes. A director or manager may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed. Speakers must observe rules of decorum and not engage in any other disruptive behavior. If a speaker is in the middle of a sentence when time is called, he or she may finish their thought before sitting down. The time guidelines ensure that others have the opportunity to speak. Speakers may not allot their time to others. All persons must follow the meeting rules listed at the bottom of this agenda.
Okay, now, I'm Beverly Gully, lot 1720, and I just wanted to comment on the fact that we no longer have reports from committees, and we no longer have reports from the various departments that are heard by the general public here. And I know the meeting is long enough as it is. My butt is killing me, but I think it's a loss to the community if all of those things are only in your packets and not made public. That's all.
How about posting it in YLP Life? William, what do you think? Putting on, well, not everybody uses Serenet, but maybe in the YLP Life once a week, maybe posting a committee's report in the minutes. I mean, well, what I was going to say was reporting once a week for the whole month. 1 week Trails and Rec, the following communications, the following, there's quite a bit for homeowners to be privy to the information. So, or even two a week. Okay. It's a lot of reading when you look at all the different committees.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a thought.
It's a good idea.
Well, I mean, sometimes say you had something that you thought could be improved. So when you come up with something that you think should be improved, it really helps us out a lot if you maybe bring also a couple of ideas. Yeah. Right.
Thank you, Bev. Thank you, Bev.
Kathy Miller, lot number 2010. I'm not quite sure, you might have taken care of this, but I just wanted to make sure that all YLOA board members had full access to all YSPUC board meetings, emails, and executive sessions, because that is what our attorney said to do last year if there was a quorum of the YLOA board on the YSPUC board.
Can you repeat that? To do what?
Last year, our attorney, in fact, that was, I think, one of the reasons why, in fact, you're using up some of my time, so I have to repeat myself, so give me some time back if you're going to ask me that question.
Never mind, continue.
Thank you. Question, Rick, the numbers that you gave on your YSPUC and YLOA financial report, 1.9 million, if that's a combination of both YLOA and YSPUC, that number is hopefully very incorrect by at least probably about $2 million. So can you please review that? Also, during the financial report, I did not hear any report of the IntraFi accounts for either YLOA or YSPUC. I've also not heard any of the bank account statements, savings accounts, and so I think that should be reported in the YLOA and YSPUC board meetings. I'm thankful that you guys removed from the agenda the fines at the bottom of the agenda, because I hope you realize that that was illegal to impose fines without it being voted on by the board and for 28-day review. Were the directors who were removed from office, were they removed in executive session? Because if that's the case, that was illegal. It's a violation of our bylaws, Article 7, Section 2, and also Corporations Code 7213 is supposed to be done in an open board meeting or any type of an open meeting. And also, can we have copies of the PowerPoints just like you did last time for the YSPC meeting? Hopefully they'll be on the website for all of those PowerPoints to be reviewed by the members. Couple more things. As far as I heard the discussion of the costs of administration with Grand Manners as compared to prior, that Pamela McDaniel and I think Jeremy also said it was basically a wash as far as admin costs were accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, and HR. Is that correct?
So the thing about
Just real quick, a yes or no.
Oh yeah,
'cause I only
sorry.
have-
Or don't respond
It
to her
was
right now.
It was very. If I want to talk to her, I'll talk to her.
Okay, take that from my time. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm not talking anymore. I don't
So
like-
anyways.
Her time's up, by the way. We've had 2 minutes.
So it got used up by, it's 3 minutes, and some of my time got used up, and that's what's on the agenda is 3 minutes. Anyway, it is not a wash because YSPUC is now paying additional employees.
That means you gotta stop talking, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Hey Kathy, if you want to talk to me about it later, I'd be happy to talk with you about it.
There's one thing I'd like to say. If you want to get the full financial report, they are now posted on the computer, and you can look at what's in the bank accounts. You can look into all that information. The public has access to it. So, and then another thing too is things occur in executive session, and it's we go according to the lawyer's advice, and if she says we do something a certain way, then we take her advice. If she changes her advice from one year to another, we have no control over that.
Jennifer Wargo, Lot 2031. You can't hear me? Jennifer Wargo, Lot 2031. I find it ironic, Cheryl, that you mentioned patterns when wasn't it you, Pam, and Beata all on the YLOA boards from 2022, 23, 23, 24, and our financials has still not been presented to the membership. I would like to know where the $450,000 in balance sheet funds lost between March 2024 and December 2024 have gone. Rick, the HOA reserve study already shows that we will have to do special assessments every 7 years to fund the reserves. How would you plan on fixing that without raising the rates when a special assessment can only be 5% of the annual budget without homeowner approval, which is about $200,000 a year? You also claim to know finance, but you have provided 0 answers to my financial questions I've posed or had anyone reach out like you said you would. How are we down an admin employee, but the salary cost for December went up $25,000 over November? Cheryl, telling us that all other services were close to $107,000 against Jeremy's variable fees is not how a financial analysis works. Do we have a secretary? Did board nominations, but I didn't hear a secretary. I think that in our bylaws we're supposed to have one. I also would like to know, excuse me, the Blue Heron budget that I mentioned to Jeremy before being short over, or there was a difference in some numbers, still hasn't been addressed in the financials. I've asked that comments be made on the financials. There are year-to-date balances that don't match what's posted in CIRNet. So if I take January, February, March, April, year-to-date doesn't match. So if things are being changed after the fact, after the books are closed, we should be notified in writing. It should be noted in the member packages, not just what you guys are getting in your board packets, because we don't have any access to those.
2 minutes, 20 seconds.
I have a timer going.
Thank you.
We get 3 minutes.
No, you had 2 minutes, 20 seconds.
We get 3 minutes.
I thought it was
So
2
I'm,
minutes. Didn't somebody say 2?
no,
Oh,
it's
my
3.
apologies.
Thank you.
Sorry.
The licenses and subscription budgets are $24,000 annually, but we have already spent $55,000 this year. So if you're looking for cost-cutting savings, maybe that's a good place to start.
Which one was that?
Subscriptions and licenses across everything, not just specific.
Okay, gotcha.
$24,000 for the year. We've spent $55,000 in 6 months.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that, this is why I wanted to be on the finance committee. I have a good head for numbers, and I'm going to keep bringing these to the membership and to the meetings until I get answers. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Larry Mackey, lot 1678, and I just want to say that I believe it's highly inappropriate for an officer of the board or any member of the board to express their personal opinions about the character of another board member. And that's all I have to say.
Hi, I'm Eric Jensen, Lot 500. I just wanted to remind everybody that of the fires going on in LA. And the reason they're so severe is when I was a teenager, those hills were covered with fire roads, fire breaks. Sometime about 40 years ago, they quit cutting them. And our park is in kind of the same shape. 50 years ago, we used to reduce fire loads by grazing cattle here. We can't really do that because cattle would be very dangerous to the homeowners and destroy their homeowners' property. But we could graze sheep or goats here. But the only thing that's holding us up from doing that in the green spaces is this board needs to give us a variance in our CCNRs to allow farm animals on the green spaces. And we could get somebody in here to rent our green space as grazing space. The net cost would be a wash. We would be providing them water. They would be buying the grass. So
we would be paying for the what? I'm sorry.
We would be providing water. They would be reducing the grass.
Eric, how does that work? Quick question. How does that work if... So I think that when they do the goats and that sort of thing, they actually do have somebody that's on site, and then they do have a fenced area, correct? That's what they're still doing? Is that what you're talking about doing?
With sheep, they don't require a fence. They have dogs that keep them in a herd. With goats, they kind of string out a little bit, and they have to put up fences. But either way, they're getting the grazing at a lower rate in order to cover. Because we have enough acreage to do it, we're not paying somebody to do it. We're actually getting paid for grazing.
I wonder how we would deal with like people still accessing that. Any ideas on that?
I would not want to be riding my bike through a herd of sheep with the dogs out there. And I looked into this.
Yeah.
But we can put up signs. It means that during the time they're grazing in a certain area, you would just want to close those trails. We would have to work with our trails committees, work with the homeowners that are in there, because their dogs will have to be chained or kenneled in those areas too. So there's some things that have to be worked out, but where it has to start is with that
you know what
grazing
else?
permits.
There's actually grants available through U.S. Forest Service and that sort of thing, and and oh, sorry. Anyway, I'll talk to you about it later.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Look at that.
Christine Mills, Lot 242. I am just letting you guys know I did message Cheryl, so she was aware of it, but for some reason, nobody likes to answer my telephone calls at the water company. So when I have brown water and it looks like this, and I can't get anybody's attention to come out, I'm just going to start bringing them to all the meetings, and the next person that tells me that this isn't harmful to you, I don't know. I'm not quite sure I would drink it, because you know what? When it settles, it doesn't look very well. Now, my water cleared Saturday morning. I let Cheryl know because she was going to send somebody out. My water cleared, but now it's back and forth, brown water. It's clear, then it's not. It's clear, then it's not. I have got more pressure than I have ever had. And I've lived in my home for 16 years. And normally, when there's a problem with the water, it's all over social media. Nobody is talking about brown water. I know my neighbor has experienced it as well. So because of all the feuding, I don't know if it's some prank, but I would definitely appreciate if we can look into this, because there's also a creek near our properties that for 16 years has always had at least a trickle of some sort of water in it. Right. And I mentioned this a while ago in the YSPUC meeting, and you were there, and you know we had some other issues going on, so that took precedence, but all I asked was for someone to look into it, okay? Now, I know we haven't had a significant amount of rainfall, but we've had enough. There's no evidence that that is a creek. It's bone dry. And now I have brown water, and so does my neighbor. And, you know, I'm not sure what's going on, but something's not flowing the right way, and I would appreciate an answer into it. And I'll go ahead and leave this for you so
I'll take it.
you guys can see it.
Can you give me your lot number so I can send an email? Okay.
Can we have, if there's no leaks going on, can we?
There's no
ask the
water.
Staff to come out, the pressure issues at Fort, we want to be between 20 and 80, more closer to 20, right?
So I'm sending an email to staff right now who does a distribution, which AT.
There's no water anywhere to even indicate that there's a leak somewhere.
We can go up to the meter, are we regulated?
To what?
Add lot 243 to that.
It's crazy.
You know what? I'm going to mention about the creek, though. You did mention the creek, and it was so crazy because I lived on Ranger Circle, and we had a creek going all the time. Joel knows this because our kids used to. Well, you're not our kids. He was hit my son, and he used to go play in the creek and everything else. And we have not. Every time I go by, I don't see it anymore. Yeah. It's so strange.
Going to be in another drought. We have
Yeah, but
always.
I'm talking, there's no evidence of it, whatsoever of anything. Not even when it's
I
raining
know.
happening.
Oh, a diversion
Yeah.
somewhere? Oh.
Yeah.
When it rains, that thing fills up and it's just flowing easily.
And like I said, I've lived in my house 16 years, and not once has it not shown some type of trace of moisture.
Yeah.
And now,
Yeah, it's so crazy. I don't know why.
Kim had an interesting point. Like, if we're fixing leaks, something was leaking forever. I mean, I don't know. You never know in this water system. It could have been fixed in that.
So, go over there with a test strip, and test it for chlorine. If it's got chlorine, it'll come out of our pipes. If it didn't, then it's coming from some natural source. Real simple.
What's her first name? Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
What's her first name?
Christine.
Christine, have you done like what they tell you on YSPUC to do the flushing and all of that? Okay, I'm sorry.
I've had numerous problems, but actually, JT was aware of a lot of our issues because we had heavy chlorine and bleach in our water that was like off the charts. And JT was aware, and then whatever him and his crew did, they corrected it. And we actually hadn't had any problems with our water for several months. And then, you know, this whole little past month or so, it just seems that, one, the water has got a different taste to it as far as, I don't drink the water, we don't cook with the water. We don't use the water except for, you know, what little you have to do with it. And it's got a strange taste. And like I said, now we've got this brown water off and on that, I don't know, it's all a hit and miss. If I throw clothes in the washer, they may be all ruined.
Well,
I had an issue over the summer with my pool. I had put hundreds of dollars of chemicals into our pool because it went swamp green overnight from the blue. And I have pictures of all of it. So I know I've spoken with Rick about it, but there's been so much change that we still haven't been able to get everything corrected. But there's something not right.
Well, it's good. It's good that you brought it forth tonight. Thank you.
Well, oh yeah. I mean, I could have brought you a sample that I had like just right before the meeting, but I figured, oh, I just leave that one. But I'll just start making samples.
YSPUC.
Okay. Joel Greathouse, I'll try to stay, well, I will stay within the three. So, talking on a broad range of topics. When I got on the board, I ran for the pipeline project. It was very quick right away. I was shocked. First time sitting on a board back in my home community, we realized, what do you mean our financials are a mess? What do you mean I can't get accurate financials? And it's not like Cheryl or Beata or people that have been purposely where our GMs kept that and board members kept other board members from getting paperwork. This is none of the boards were getting it, right? And so it was evident back then that you couldn't even, it didn't matter if the people that wanted the project to stay in house and I wanted it to go out of house, No project. Nothing was going to last. Our employees, this place wouldn't last if we couldn't get accurate financials. I was 3 years on the board. We struggled. I fought against the board. What Cheryl and Beata and Pam go through now, if you were all here and some of you were there, I was the one 10 years ago that said, I'm not going to accept this. A lot of you were my supporters back then. We were not going to accept having financials that were not accurate financials not being reported to us. Because what would we hear? Oh, there's been theft. There's been theft. Okay. There's paper shredding parties. There was. Our employees were shredding documents for years. We found that out. This was years ago, before even I was on the board. There were illegal things happening, right? And another thing, the board didn't know who managed who. The board didn't know whether they managed the GM, and the GM didn't know if the board was responsible. It was literally a gray area that entire 3 years, and I'm not, because we couldn't answer it, nobody just really knew how to take charge. We had Grand Manners. It was so bad in the first 2 years, we actually, as a board, we solicited outside companies. Grand Manners, we got the binders from them. We had the bids back then. Our board, we were like 1 or 2 votes short of bringing the company 10 years ago. This isn't a new thing. It's not a new thing. Everybody said, try, and it sounds like they tried. Our last thing on the board, we hired JP. We searched and searched for him. We found him. He was supposed to be the answer. At that town hall meeting a year ago when I left and didn't care anymore, 7 years later I come back and the financials were worse than they were before. It's no doubt that Grand Matters came in. I want to thank Rick for standing up and saying and bringing up difficult things. Like, I've worked with these people. He had worked with these individuals, and they turned on him, and he called them out. It is not an easy thing, Rick, because I haven't had an easy going with Ken. He did the same thing to me. Our first introduction was when I was on the board. He came up and he said, "Joel, you arrogant SOB." That's how I met you, Ken, the first time. Yes, it was. So that's just how it is. It always has been. Beata was in the crowd. She was one of my only supporters for a while. And then it grew, and then she stayed on the board. So thank you guys for taking over. And what's very interesting, when these elections happened, fine. Then you guys had Rick on here. You didn't make Cheryl the president. I was on the YSPUC board. They brought me in to work on the budget earlier in this year because our budget hadn't been done since 2018. Nobody wanted to step up and do the work. We were trying, I was asked to do that. No, we were handling personnel issues the whole time. Personnel and emergency issues. We couldn't get any business done. Nobody talks about this. The recall camp doesn't talk about this online. I was on the board. I didn't get a single notification. I had to call Cheryl one day, like 5 weeks after the election. Am I still on the board? Like, where's the illegal authority? There was no action taken. So when everybody's attacking this board for recalling the YSPC board, trust me, get on the YSPC board, go look at the minutes. There was, I tell you this, there was illegal activities could have bankrupted us, and it's a good thing they pulled the board. But you all are mad that they pulled the current board now, and then they put me back on, right? They removed me in July. Nobody cared. They recalled the entire YSPC board in July, folks. We were making progress. They recalled all of us. They didn't notify me, nothing. Now, then all of it falls out, right? And then they call a recall because of what's actually the illegal stuff that's probably about to happen, and everybody freaks out that they're trying to recall the board. It's so funny. Thank you guys for standing up to these people.
Thank you.
Can I say one thing? When me and Kathy was on the board, me and her, we wrote to the attorney trying to get financial information, and we had an IDR, and we provided 17 pages of proof.
Sometimes I just like to make a general comment is sometimes the right thing is the hardest thing, and it's not always easy to make some decisions, but I personally can say that I make decisions for our entire community. I do for the water customers, for the HOA homeowners, and I know that get criticism from all sides, but I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going to speak to me, but that was just a comment I wanted to make. And then Bill has, yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Do you mind, Tammy? Okay. All right, go ahead. And they have three reminder, 3 minutes.
Okay, I could hardly hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so Joel Greathouse, I really don't know Joel, but if I was there, he said everything exactly like I would want to say it. And I spoke earlier, so you already know where I come from, but I really appreciate Rick. I don't know him, never met him, but he expressed himself and his experience very professionally. I appreciate when you review boards like this, and I've done that for a very long time. Beata, Cheryl, and Pam, you look like a good team working together. And I'm sorry, but Rose and Ken, I would fire immediately if they were in my company. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I hope I don't mean to offend you. It's just business is business. You guys got to move on, and moving on with those two looks impossible. Okay? So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, Preston McGill wants to speak.
All right.
Preston McGill, you there?
Hello.
How come you're remote?
He always is.
Hi, I'm here. Oh my gosh, thank you everybody. Long meeting. Okay, I'll take my 3 minutes here. Okay, Joel, thank you. You said a lot of stuff I don't have to repeat. Was also on the board for a while. 3 out of every 4 meetings was an emergency or some kind of personnel meeting, so it was really hard to get anything done. We did fix a lot of things. We fixed the antiquated computer system, a lot of other security things, closed some other loopholes, but I wanted to spend some time talking about the recreational center. I think it's a good idea to refurbish the swings, even though they're a little beat up. They're swings. The play structure needs to be refurbished. It's pretty beat up. There's some graffiti on there, and some of the things on there don't work. There's some other kind of safety hazards just around the recreational center, like the basketball fencing is damaged and kind of dangerous in some areas. I think the board's doing a great job. I don't know. Half the meeting was spent talking about weird old business that everybody'd like to kind of forget, but we keep talking about it. I do want to remind the board here and the members that are on the YSPC board and the community that I worked on all the solar stuff for over a year. I'm not going to let that go because we still have those applications. YSPUC, I know that's not the meeting, but we're all vested owners, can still save over $500,000. YLOA can still save over $100,000 annually, so we're looking at $600,000 to the homeowners. This is not money that we're going to just find. This is money that's going to PG&E. And I don't know if you saw, but I'm not hating PG&E, but they just asked for the 6th rate hike in the last 12-month period. So it's not going to get any better. It makes no sense. We should really do the right thing, and the board, whoever's there, needs to continue with the plan where we had it, where we left off. YSPC has a lot of information. I provided that to the board. So the things that have been there, and unfortunately the board resigned and weird stuff happened, but we still need to make that happen regardless of who's there. And there were a lot of plans in place. I was reviewing some of the board measures that I had passed, and some of the ones were like emergency responses and other things like that. So haven't seen anything from the board, but I really hope that there's been emergency coordinators and operators and things assigned in the event that we do have some kind of water-related emergency. And I think the YLOA board needs to make sure that YSPUC is doing those things, because there was a lot of weird stuff that just should have been obvious that wasn't happening. I really appreciate everybody not fighting and canceling the meeting, which happens for some reason sometimes. We're all going to disagree, but at the same time, we really just need to gut check everything. And what's most important is what impacts everybody. You can't get in here without the roads, can't get out of here without the roads, can't do anything without the roads. And the roads, in my opinion, just aren't getting the attention that they need. Okay, the other things are getting attention, and it's distracting, and it's really unfortunate. I really hope that when the tennis court, I have 10 seconds, the tennis court gets redone, that we do fix that piping, because it would be ridiculous to have to then have the broken pipe go in, just like the pipes sitting outside that we shouldn't put back in service that are sun damaged. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Preston, call me sometime about that the play yard stuff, because we're trying to get some ideas on that, and we can go further.
Okay, just last 10 seconds on that. I think that you should develop or provide some kind of survey that can be done by people that attend the park, and then we could also have some weekends or days where somebody goes out there and collects some surveys or something, because I think we can get some really good input from some of the parents and the kids that are out there.
Okay, but I'd still like to talk to you about it some afterwards.
Yeah, that's fine, Pam. No problem.
Thank you, Preston.
Tammy, you're up.
Next up.
I'm short. Sorry. I got an opportunity to talk to Jeremy and the roads department manager about. Oh, sorry. I'm Tammy Knott. I wrote lot 1441 and 1440. I was able to talk to Jeremy and the roads manager about the roads repairs, and I was just wondering if we had any additional conversation from the roads manager about how we might address some of those things.
Well, we've talked about putting those things in the budget for 2025, 26. And so that's really what we're planning to do now is we're trying to figure out if we want to do some sealing on some cracks, how much we need to budget in 25 to get that done. So that's probably our plan is to do it in 25, 26.
Okay. And then there's spaces in the road where they go in and there's like all kinds of cracks and they just plop a little road seal in the middle. They don't fix the entire area or not road seal, but patch. They put patch in it. So there's a patch in the center, but there's cracks all around. Instead of just taking out those cracks for that area and putting the patch in, if we decide, come up with how we're going to like maybe move forward with, let's fix the whole
Are those
part.
recent, Tammy?
What's that?
Are those recent repairs?
Yeah, I have a picture of one that has been repaired twice the same way.
And
So they're putting patch in the middle, but there's cracks all around, which means the water is still getting in under the road.
Yeah.
Rather than taking all of the cracks out and putting in a bigger patch,
Right.
so that the water's not getting into the road.
Right.
Jeremy, isn't that how the process is, though, for filling those cracks? They have to first fill them to figure out where exactly the leak is coming from, and it's a whole process of a long period of time. I thought Bill once told me how they did it.
Right.
Do you know?
So
You're asking the wrong guy on that one,
Okay,
sorry.
'cause that's what I understood. A lot of people say, oh, they just put a little filler in the crack, but my understanding, I could be wrong, but I thought that they fill it and then they have to go through this whole process to determine exactly where that leak is coming from. Then once they determine to it, and it's a long process, I don't know how long, but it's a long process, and then once they determine that's the location of the leak, then they do the patch. Now, I don't know how long that takes.
I think we're talking about two different things.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm talking about the road repair. I'm not talking about where a leak has come up through the road. I'm talking about the fact that there's cracks in the road,
right.
that the rainwater has damaged the road.
The rainwater, okay.
And it's all cracked around, and it makes a pothole.
3 minutes.
And they go and they fill the pothole in the middle, but do nothing about the cracks around. So it's just going to keep happening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Howard Cox, Lot 333. I just have a couple comments with the fires down in LA. We don't have any backup powers for our water pressure. Once the fires start, they're going to cut the grid. So how are we going to keep water in our pipes?
Well,
We don't have any generators.
Well, it's funny. I was going to actually ask the Ladies of the Lake if they would do, I know, a fundraiser. I know they're not supporting the fire station at this time, but I think that generating money for the generators of YSBC booster stations would be a good booster.
Yes,
That
I
could
agree.
happen. Yes.
I know that there is money available in the fire department.
Oh, okay.
With the LOL. It's been sitting there.
Yeah.
So you might ask them because.
If they could reallocate that for that reason. Oh. Yeah, I mean, they're super pricey. We're having staff look into exactly how much and how many we need. They're very expensive. But yeah,
And the other
Yeah.
thing-
That'd be awesome.
So that would, anyway, the generator on those things, and that would be super nice to help contribute towards it. But I know that, our fire station fundraising on Ladies of the Lake kind of went to a halt, but it would be awfully nice to, and I was going to request that from Ladies of the Lake to do a proposal request to consider that. So that would be one thing. But we are talking, we had staff that's reached out to PG&E
Right.
to kind of get back in to see what
Well,
what we
even if-
qualify for, how much they cost, and what it's going to take.
PG&E can set up some temporary generators in the event something happens.
They require
For free.
they do that for free, but it's what they require to get them here, and it usually is that we have to prove we have an emergency, and by the time we have an emergency and then they actually bring them, it's usually too late. So it's a matter of timing and trying to predict that you're going to have an emergency where you need those generators.
You know what happened, Howard, when we had that 48 or 80 acre fire over there long ago, but they were, and they'll extract from the lakes, or they were also extracting from the cattle ranch behind us and that sort of thing.
But even our main lake over here is getting low.
Right.
So where are they going to get water?
Yeah, I
from?
mean, they went back to the cattle ranch behind us. They just go to the nearest places.
The other question I have is our fire mains, are they hooked up to the old pipe or new pipe?
The hydrants?
The hydrants?
hydrants.
It depends on which location. So the tie-ins at the Crystal Cave all got new
the new
hydrants,
pipe,
and they're into the new pipe, yes.
What I'm worried about is having a jackknife effect when they got to pop multiple hydrants, and all of a sudden, we're not going to have any water at all,
Well,
because it's all going to go.
Well, we've actually been prior to the YSPUC board of July that took over, but prior to that, I can only speak for myself. I had spoke with CAL FIRE, and what was happening is they were coming in and utilizing and full-on turning on hydrants, and it was doing that hammer effect that you're talking about and blowing out and creating damage and breaks and other things. But now we've got a good communication with them and a procedure that they call in when we do have these.
Doesn't two different people have to come out and turn some pumps on, or?
Well, they actually regulate valves at that point. And so it depends on who's on call and then who we need to call to have happen. And then, again, this is where JT is still helping us in case of these things to know exactly what the level is of certain valves going on and needing to go off into what level. So the CAL FIRE, when they call, they have two numbers that they call on YSPUC. We try to coordinate those efforts, so then we send people out to make sure that that's regulated. And right now, with JT's help on the distribution decisions on what needs to happen on that.
Don't they make an automated system for that?
I'm not.
It could automatically regulate when it knows the hydrants are being spun.
Oh, well, that's kind of our SCADA system right now, but I actually don't have knowledge of that.
Okay. And the last thing I have is our roads. They are terrible.
Well,
There's in front of my house, it's spider webbing like crazy. The rain gets in, it's just deteriorating the whole road. We've got holes going deeper and deeper. Pretty soon people are going to drive and they're going to end up flying into somebody's property, into a tree or a house. It needs to be put on maybe a mile a year, maybe something.
I've requested, personally wanting to see a road schedule, a construction schedule.
You know what? You know how they do in the city, they'll go around with the spray paint, the orange paint, and somebody will just go along the roads and just and then they're, I don't know how they can do something like that.
Exactly. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Make it glow in the dark.
Jeremy, just curious on the roads. If homeowners have an issue in front of their house and the spider, a couple of homeowners have expressed, can they just make a request to your office and say, hey, it seems like I've got lots of problems in front of my house, and then you would send, obviously, Bill, I guess, to investigate it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, sorry. Yes, but I think there is, there's some it's challenging, because if Bill goes and says, oh yeah, I can just cut out a 3x4 space and fix that, that's an easy one. But if we go and it's, I got to do the whole road, that's a different conversation, right? And so what I would say is give us the opportunity, let us know. I mean, those guys are fixing all day long, right? And so, if there's something we need to put on our work order, we can put a work order in for it and get it taken care of and at least get it looked at. And, if it's not something we can fix right away, we can at least try to diagnose if it's something serious that needs to be, escalated.
What would be the...
Oh, I was just going to add really quick.
Yeah, go.
Basically, the homeowners are the eyes that a lot of times we're not aware of what's going on or what's happening on the road. So the homeowners are the ones who could help us to know what's going down on the roads, right?
So Jeremy, on something like that, and
Yes.
I don't know if it's something you need to think about, but like especially if there's problematic areas where it's repeated, and because we don't want them to have to redo stuff. So would there be like an email that somebody could just submit pictures and that sort of thing, and not really just with
YostLakes@SierraMail.com.
Okay, and just say, here's the situation.
Here's the
and-
location. Here's the pictures. Can you send somebody out to take a look at it? And we'll
Yeah.
say, sure.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay.
Way past 3 minutes on roads.
Past 3
Way
minutes?
past 3 minutes on roads.
I need to go to the podium.
You don't need to go to the podium to talk.
Oh, can I mention something real quick?
Real quick?
Real quick.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I'm not sure. I tried to. So a homeowner had sent me something that they saw on social media on Friday. Apparently, there was a hiking group that went up. 19 people and a dog, and they're on the Sierra Hiking Seniors. And I used to be on that site because they would do hikes in here, and I would just put a little blurb there. You guys realize this is a prime, because I've also written to different websites where they've posted our trails on their websites, like all trails, and I got those removed. But anyway, I went on there and I let them know the last time this happened that, hey, I hope do you understand that you have to be there with an owner. This can't be like your group's going there. And so this happened again, and a homeowner sent this to me, and there basically I put a message Friday, the 24th, and it said something about somebody named Jackie in here in the post. But all 19 people went out there to the Stagecoach Trail, and so I put another message, hey, just want to let you know this is a private property, because they said, oh, it's a great trail, there's this and that and this and that. And I said, I would, this is private property, so you have to have an owner with you. And then they blocked me. They removed my post. They blocked me. So,
Jackie's a homeowner here.
is she? Well, that was fine. All she had to do was message. So, anyway, I just didn't know if. So I wasn't able to figure out what the deal was with that. So if you guys encountered that, this is something that an owner had talked to me about. So I just wanted to address that.
And they were upset that they got on their property, or what?
No. She was because we'd had this issue in the past where they didn't go up with homeowners.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure they're aware. This is private property. I don't. So as long as you're with an owner, that's fine.
Yes.
But then they removed me and blocked me from their site. So I didn't know.
Okay.
And I was really nice about it.
Well, and we're having a hike this coming Saturday, actually, at Stagecoach East at 9 a.m.
Is this meeting over with?
I think, are we at the end here?
Yeah, we're done. Anything else, Rick?
I just wanted to say no audio or video recording allowed by attendees. Do we have anybody who's recording? Kathy Miller? Are you recording this meeting on your phone? Mm-hmm. Got it. Thanks. Do you want to adjourn the meeting, Rick? Oh.
Discretion of the president of the board, Kathy.
No, that's not what's in your agenda.
I'm exercising my discretion. The fact you don't like it, I take that under advisement. Thank you.
So are we adjourned? Are we adjourned?
I think we're about to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. It's almost 10 o'clock.